What's going on, guys? Welcome back to hashtag AskGSM here today, episode 6034, for Tuesday, June 17, 2025. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having an awesome week. Let's, fingers crossed here, let's hope that we are getting off to a strong start. I know 3 weeks ago with episode 600, I did not have the mic unmuted. So I fucked up there. The first 10 minutes of that video were completely ruined by silence because I was an idiot and forgot to unmute the mic. Then last week, for whatever reason, YouTube screwed me and I thought we were live. It was telling me we were live, and yet the first 40 minutes of the show, it was not working. So I have the first 40 minutes, but I never really ended up uploading it. I just kind of left it as is on the stream here on YouTube, just because I ended up answering all the questions that I was answering basically while talking to myself. How embarrassing is that? I ended up just, including them in the rest of the video. So if you guys are seeing me now, if you can hear me live and loud and clear, be sure to let me know in the chat. I'll pull up the chat now. I think we're good. I'm pretty sure we're good. I told Alexis that we're live. She says, okay, I'm in, letting me know that I think we're live. So if you guys can hear me, be sure to let me know in the chat that you can see me, you can hear me, and we can get going here with episode 603. Alexis letting me know, Miss Maud herself, letting me know that it's all working, which is great. So no issues this week, which is awesome. Thank you to our channel members. Speaking of which, as we kick off today's stream, Alexis, Miss Maud Matthews herself, Dillon DiGiacomo, Mrs. Renee, DJ Swerve1. Find him on the IG at Swerve1, WON, on Instagram. Daniel Malcolm at letter I, letter M, quarter on X. He's I'm quarter on X. Mr. Marceau himself, RJ_Marceau on Twitter. John Ritland, find him here on YouTube. Real Honesty with John Ritland, does great content, does great work. Check him out there. Richie's channel as well, Red Planet Wrestling here on YouTube. And last but not least, Average Grunt at the Average Grunt here on, not here on YouTube, that would be on X. Check him out over on X. Follow him there. Thank you to our channel members. Thank you to Johnny, Fernando, Alexis as well, all letting me know that we're working and that we're going good here. So thank you so much for that. But at any rate, speaking of Grunt, he actually sent in a question that we'll get to here momentarily. But because he is a channel member, he gets his questions answered first. So if you're a channel member and you want to become a channel member, want your questions answered before anyone else, be sure to sign up for a channel membership, $5 a month. The WrestleRant All Access Pass will get you a whole bunch of perks, including badges and emojis in the live chat, top billing here on shows and WrestleRant Radio. I know Grunt asked me on Twitter last week how you can get your topic discussed first on WrestleRant Radio if you're a channel member. That is true. That is among the perks. Just tweet me. Either tweet me, or I was kind of considering putting up a post on the channel. I'm not always great with doing that on time. So if you have something you want me to discuss first, or myself and Mr. Marceau on WrestleRant Radio, or answer first here in hashtag AskGSM, the best way to let me know about that sort of stuff is just by tweeting me. So tweet me, let me know what topics you want me to discuss first on WrestleRant Radio, or whatever question like you sent in this week, or on YouTube. I'll see it on YouTube as well. In a YouTube comment, I'll write it down in the lineup for the shows, and we can always get to it first. Among many other perks as well. So sign on up for a WrestleRant All Access Pass, $5 a month. More information on that in the description box down below. And at the very least, if you want to support the channel, you can just simply like this video and subscribe. All the likes are greatly appreciated. And by subscribing, be sure to hit the bell button as well to be notified every single time we upload new content and every single time we go live here on the channel, which is typically every single Tuesday and Thursday for hashtag AskGSM and WrestleRant Radio, and the occasional surprise stream like a couple of weeks ago where I was enjoying a relaxing, non-busy Sunday. Then WWE announces, or R-Truth rather announced, that his WWE contract wasn't getting renewed, which thankfully was, they kind of went back on that and brought him back, which was great. But I spent like fucking 2 hours of my Sunday that I otherwise would have been doing nothing for a rare change. And we talked about that, so you get a surprise stream every now and again as well. Millennial Noob also joining us, saying good morning, Graham. How you doing today? Noob, I'm doing well, brother. Thanks for asking. Hope you're doing well as well. I see Johnny and Fernando having a lot of comments in the chat, because the headline of today's video is all about which WWE matches surprisingly never happened. That was a great question that I think Jordan sent in that we'll actually get to very early on here today. Fernando said, Buenos dias, WrestleRant. Buenos dias, Fernando. Thank you for joining as always. Fernando sent in earlier, and the more you chat in, by the way, by incorporating messages into the chat, You become number one on the leaderboard. What those points mean, they really mean nothing. But you get a little 1 or 2 or 3 next to your name. The more you chat, the more of a super chatter that you become. And you're number one on the leaderboards. You get XP points for every chat that you send in. It's kind of cool. It's a little competition, I guess. So it's more incentive to chat in. Maybe we can have like a reward or something. Maybe like an extra shout out. Although I shout you guys out anyway. I don't know. Extra reward or something for anyone who becomes number one chatter by the end of the stream. I guess we can figure that out. But anyway, Fernando said earlier, Sting versus Taker and Austin versus Hogan, Austin versus Goldberg were all matches that should have totally happened, but over dumb wrestling politics did not happen. Yeah, we'll get into Sting and Taker being one of them. That was my first and foremost. But Austin and Hogan, Austin versus Goldberg. I'm not really surprised none of those matches happened. Sting and Taker I was surprised by. Hogan and Austin, I'm not really overly surprised. I mean, I don't know if Hogan didn't want to lose, although he did lose to The Rock instead. I don't know. I don't really know what the reason behind that. I mean, I know it's been well documented, but I forget. That match would have happened at WrestleMania 18. Austin versus Goldberg, when would that have happened? Because Goldberg came into WWE literally the night after Austin retired in 2003. So I don't think that match was ever going to happen. Unless Goldberg came in sooner, I guess that could have been the match for WrestleMania 19. Beyond that, I'm not really sure when that match would have happened because Stone Cold was retired by the time Goldberg had that first run in WWE over 20 years ago. Fernando also said WWE forcing Sting versus Triple H on us instead of Taker versus Sting was a huge disgrace. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later on as far as why I was surprised. We did not get Sting versus Taker. The 1 or 2 times where we definitely could have gotten that match. Johnny said Hulk Hogan versus Stone Cold in 2002. Just mentioned that match. Taz versus Raven in ECW. Taz versus Sandman in ECW. Neither of those matches happened. That's kind of crazy because I associated ECW with all of those guys. And I guess the fact that Taz and Raven, I mean, I know, Raven and Sandman had matches together, of course, but Taz and Raven, Taz and Sandman, that's kind of surprising. Shawn Michaels versus The Rock 02 or 03. Yeah, I'm a little surprised. That's a match I'm definitely surprised did not happen on like a random Raw or something like that when Shawn Michaels returned to the ring. By that point, Rock was a part-timer, but you still could have done the match. They did the fucking Rock and Brock Lesnar match at one point in 2002. They did a lot of random matches in 2002 and 03. They did like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair on Raw at one point, I think, which had already happened in WCW, I believe, but they definitely did it on Raw in 2002, I think, as well. Anyway, Taz versus Terry Funk in ECW, Bret Hart versus Hulk Hogan in 93-94. Another match I knew did not happen because that would have been the match that made sense. When Bret Hart was champion, he could have, beaten Hulk Hogan. When Hulk Hogan beat Yokozuna for the championship in Vegas or WrestleMania 9, instead of having him lose it right back to Yokozuna, who then lost to Bret Hart the following year at WrestleMania, which it ended up working out the way that it did. But that being said, you could have very easily had Bret Hart be the one to beat Hulk Hogan for that championship that summer. Hogan's final WWE match during that run after a lot of years in WWE, after being in that company for so long, was a loss to Yokozuna. A tainted win, mind you, with like the fireball to the face and what was a really not that good of a match. It would have been a much better match had it been Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan, whether it be at SummerSlam or at that King of the Ring show in 93, what have you. That would have been a great endorsement of Bret Hart, but instead he just put over Yokozuna when he didn't really need to beat Yokozuna for the belt anyway, to begin with, at WrestleMania 9 earlier that year. Johnny also said Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey one-on-one. That was actually a match that I had listed as far as surprising matches that I was, very surprised we did not get. It did happen in the triple threat at WrestleMania 35, but one-on-one it did not happen. So we'll get to that. I actually listed that in my picks as far as matches I was surprised did not happen. Maria, what's going on, Maria? Thanks for joining. They said Goldberg versus Taker should have happened during Goldberg's very first run in WWE, instead of waiting until the two were way past their prime in Saudi Arabia. What a damn waste. And that match was fucking terrible, too. But you're saying it should have happened during Goldberg's very first run in WWE. I guess you're right. I think the only thing preventing that from happening was that Taker was a SmackDown guy. This was at like the peak of the brand split, when it actually meant something. And I know Brock was a SmackDown guy at that point, and they did end up doing Brock and Goldberg for their final matches, respectively, before they both left the company at WrestleMania 20 that would have been. But they really weren't doing a whole lot of cross-branded stuff. We got Goldberg and Jericho. We got Goldberg, I think, and Christian. Goldberg and Triple H a whole bunch of times. I think Goldberg and Kane, one-on-one, at least the triple threat I remember at Armageddon. We got a bunch of Goldberg matches during that run, a lot of which were not great. We got Goldberg and Rock. Shockingly, we actually got Goldberg and Rock, because Rock was on his way out. Goldberg was on his way in. They did cross paths very briefly, and we got that fun match at Backlash 2003. But yeah, we never got Taker and Goldberg. Now, they did end up doing it in 2019 in Saudi Arabia, like you said, and that match was fucking terrible. And Taker almost got killed on that match, as did Goldberg. They almost killed each other, actually. That match could have ended a lot worse. But anyway, we got the match, but I'm almost kind of wishing that we never got the match, because that match that we did get was terrible. Maybe it's the same thing with Sting and Taker. Maybe it's a blessing that we never got that match. I mean, in 2015, I still think it would have been fine. But, like, had we gotten it in 2020 or something like that, I'm sure it would not have been great. Anyway, Fernando said, "Here, you perfect." Thank you, Fernando. Everything good, Johnny said as well. Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles. That's a match I'm surprised did not happen as well. I mean, a little bit, because if there was any match that Shawn Michaels could have come out of retirement for years and years ago, it was either that or him and Bryan Danielson. I'm not surprised that we didn't get the match. I'm disappointed we didn't get Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles, because that match would have been fucking awesome. It's just more so that I guess Shawn felt, I don't know if it was a level of insecurity or what, but I know he said in interviews, even before he returned to the ring for that Saudi show in 2018 for Crown Jewel, that terrible match, DX versus Brothers of Destruction. I know he said in some sort of interview that if he were ever to return, which he did, it would probably be like a DX nostalgia tag team thing. So it wouldn't really be, like, the pressure wouldn't be on him to go out there and be the Shawn Michaels of old and wrestle a match on his own. The irony of that statement is that he was the best part of that match at Crown Jewel 2018. Of him, Triple H, Taker, and Sting. I think Kane got hurt. Kane got demasked during the match. He got unmasked during the match. Triple H ended up getting hurt. Thankfully recovered in time for WrestleMania 35, but he got hurt during that match. Taker did not look great. That whole match was a fucking travesty. And Shawn Michaels was the best part about it. So for a guy that was so worried about not really living up to his past expectations, because it had been like 8.5 years, almost a decade, since he last wrestled that amazing match with Taker at WrestleMania 26. I get it. But honestly, if he were to come out of retirement for any one match, it really should have been against either AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan. Either one of those matches would have been 1,000 times better than the abomination that we got at Crown Jewel 2018. Johnny said, Brothers of Destruction versus the Outsiders 0203. Yeah, I'm not really surprised that we didn't get that match, just because, I mean, the Outsiders weren't really around for all that long. I mean, if you're talking Nash and Hall, obviously the original Outsiders from WCW that came into WWE as part of NWO in 02, what were they? How long were they around for? A month or two before Scott Hall got fired from the Plane Ride from Hell? He wasn't even the Scott Hall of old. Taker and Kane, I don't think were even teaming in 02. What was Taker even doing in 02? He feuded with Ric Flair. He was the WWE champion. Yeah, that match was never going to happen. In 03, Scott Hall wasn't even there. So I'm not really surprised that we didn't get that match. Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero versus Shawn Michaels. That is a match I'm surprised that we never got. And I think the plan might have been to do that match. Rumor always has it that that was the match they were planning on doing at WrestleMania 22, months after Eddie passed. I don't know if that's true or not, but there could be something to it, because I think the idea was to do Eddie and Shawn and then Vince and Bret Hart. But Bret Hart didn't want to wrestle the match. He ended up wrestling the match years later at WrestleMania 26, unfortunately. That we watched that match here on the channel a couple of months ago. It was fucking terrible. But anyway, I think it was going to be Vince and Bret. Vince wanted to do that match. Bret said no. Eddie passed, so Shawn was out without an opponent. So they did Shawn and Vince instead, which actually exceeded expectations. But yeah, Eddie and Shawn were in the same company together for years. Really, I mean, not when Eddie first came in 2000. Shawn was retired at that point. But when he came back in 02, they were around in the same company, albeit not on the same show, for 3 years. Eddie was a SmackDown guy at that point. Shawn was a Raw guy. But guess what? Kurt was a SmackDown guy. Shawn was a Raw guy. You still made that match happen at WrestleMania 21. I'm glad we got that match. But the fact we never got Shawn and Eddie, at least not on a major scale, does suck. Stone Cold and Brock, I'm not really surprised that never happened, just because Stone Cold was retired by the time that Brock kind of rose to prominence. You could have done that at WrestleMania 19, but Brock was a babyface by that point. Stone Cold wanted to wind down against a familiar foe in The Rock, who we never lost to at WrestleMania before. Nick, what's going on, brother? Joining, saying, yo, what's going on, Nick? Hope you're doing well. Johnny said Shawn Michaels versus Brock Lesnar 0203. Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get that match. I mean, they teased it a few times, actually about a decade ago, when Shawn Michaels, or Triple H rather, was feuding with Brock. I think Brock actually broke Shawn's arm in kayfabe, and then Shawn got his revenge at WrestleMania 29, that would have been, by interfering in that match, that no-holds-barred match between Triple H and Brock. But yeah, Shawn and Brock back in 0203 would have been cool. I am a little surprised that match did not happen. Fernando said Macho Man versus Roddy Piper was a missed opportunity by both WWE and WCW that made no sense. Yeah, I guess we never got that match. Did that match ever happen at any point anywhere? I mean, there's a few matches I might mention that when we get into that question as far as matches that we're surprised never happened, I'll answer that a little bit later on. Not even that much later on. It's like the second or third question I'll be getting to here today. A lot of these matches that I mentioned never happened at all, but some of them happened, like one of them happened on a house show, but it just never happened on WWE TV, where it really matters. I mean, house show matches are fine. So technically they did happen, but a lot of matches just never happened at all. And if it doesn't happen on TV, then people kind of consider it to be lost to time anyway. But yeah, Macho Man and Randy Savage, or Macho Man, that would have been an awesome match, right? Macho Man versus Randy Savage. No, I'm sorry. Randy Savage and Roddy Piper would have been fucking awesome for sure, especially on the promo front. Johnny said Brock Lesnar versus Edge. Yeah, it's another match I'm kind of surprised didn't happen. They were on the same show in late 02, early 03. Edge broke his neck, but then by the time that he came back, Brock was gone. So they could have done the match on TV. Maybe they did. I don't think they did. But they could have done the match on TV in late 02, early 03, because Brock had a lot of matches on TV. He faced John Cena for the first time on TV in late 02. He faced Randy Orton on TV for the first time in late 02. Like, he had some later, what would later be considered dream matches on TV at that point. Edge was not among them. Daniel Malcolm joining us. Daniel, what's going on, brother? Richie also joining us. The whole group is pulling up here today. Richie, what's going on, brother? Some what's up, chat? What's up, Graham? I'm doing well, Richie. How about yourself? Thanks for joining as always. Great to see you. Let's see. Daniel said Cena versus Hogan. Yeah, Cena versus Hogan, I'm a little surprised didn't happen. I think the plan was to do that match at, WrestleMania 23, 24, 25? But Hogan was so beaten down at that point. Hogan did have matches in TNA when he went to TNA in late 09. But he wasn't the same Hogan. I mean, even in 05, he was a fucking beaten down mess. Hogan was limited even then when he was facing Randy Orton at SummerSlam and Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam. He was limited even then. But especially by 08, 09, 2010 when he had numerous back surgeries. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that didn't happen. I'm not surprised that we did not get Cena versus Austin. Because remember, the title of today's video is matches I'm surprised that never happened. I'm not surprised we never got Austin versus Cena. Because Austin did not come out of retirement, despite their many attempts to get him out of retirement, until 2022? Till WrestleMania 38. And that was the only match he had, was against Kevin Owens at that WrestleMania. And then before that, John Cena, Stone Cold was kind of wrestling on a part-time basis when John Cena was just getting started. So I'm not really surprised that match never happened. Same thing with Steve Austin and CM Punk. I know Fernando mentioned that one. Richie said, where is the championship title next to my name? I don't know. Oh, there it is. That's weird. Okay, so it didn't pop up initially, but it's popping up now. I saw Richie just sent in a comment, and the championship title is popping up now. So, very cool. Very cool. That is a benefit of being a channel member, is getting a little badge next to your name. Just a little incentive there. BXB HOTZ, do you think Cena will turn back babyface? Yes, I do. Probably by SummerSlam. I definitely expected that. Definitely on the Sooner side. Let's see, squash match, Brock Lesnar versus heel Christian. Yeah, that would have been a squash. Would have been a fun match if they actually made it competitive, but that really would not have been all that competitive, I'm sure, if they had booked that in real time many years ago. I think the Brothers of Destruction won the WCW Tag Team titles in 02. I think that was in 01, Johnny. They had disbanded and discontinued and deactivated all the WCW championships by Survivor Series 01. So that would have been in 02, I think. Or in 01, I'm sorry. That would have happened, not 02. Johnny said Triple H with Evolution versus JBL with the Cabinet. Am I surprised that match never happened? I mean, Triple H and JBL did have matches, but you're saying in like '05, that match wouldn't have made sense because like you would have had to turn Evolution face. They were slowly breaking up that group. The Cabinet did not really last all that long. The Cabinet was only around for a couple of months when JBL was the WWE champion, and then they broke up. So it certainly wasn't a dream match because that match would have never been great. Triple H versus Mr. Perfect. Am I surprised that match never happened? No, because when Triple H came into the company in '95, I think Mr. Perfect was already gone at that point. And then when Mr. Perfect returned for that short run in '02, I think they actually interacted in that Rumble. I mean, so we technically did get that match, not one-on-one, but the Rumble that Triple H won in '02, that was where Mr. Perfect returned. So we actually technically got them interacting. But as a full-on match, I don't think it happened during that point. They were both baby faces, I want to say. And then Mr. Perfect got fired, and then he died the following year. So not really surprised that match did not happen. Taker versus Sting 2015, Daniel said, I actually had that on my list as well. We'll get to that. Brock versus Batista, at least main roster-wise. I also have that on my list, Daniel. Great minds think alike. We'll get to that in a little bit. Johnny said Bray Wyatt versus Sting in 2015. Yeah, you know what? I am a little surprised we did not get that match. I was kind of expecting that. Because Sting, after he wrestled Triple H and lost to Triple H at WrestleMania 31, he obviously came back for one brief run before he got hurt and had to retire the first time for that feud with Seth Rollins. And he had that match with Seth Rollins going into Night of Champions. Lost, obviously. But I think the original rumor was that around that time, the Wyatt family was reuniting, and it was Bray and Braun Strowman had just debuted. I think Eric Rowan was out hurt. I want to say it was Bray and Luke Harper, and then they debuted Strowman against the remnants of the Shield. They were not turning Rollins babyface at that point, but it was Roman Dean, and then they needed a partner. Now, they did end up recruiting a returning Chris Jericho for Night of Champions for that six-man tag team match, but I think the original rumor was that it would be Sting, and that Sting would be the third man, and that might lead to a Bray and Sting match. That never materialized, but I'm not even sure how good the match would have been, but that would have been cool. DX versus NWO six-man tag team match. Again, not surprised that match did not happen. They were in separate companies. But we got a version of it at WrestleMania 31, if nothing else. Noob said Asuka versus Kairi Sane was supposed to be a fun match, but hey, it's a pandemic. Always improvise. When was that match planned for the pandemic, Millennial Noob? Was that match? I mean, I guess I am. That is a match I'm surprised that we never got. I mean, it could still happen now that Asuka's returned and they were involved in Damage Control. They did team up quite a bit. I don't know when that would have been. I know Kairi Sane left the company in 2020 and then went back home to Japan and then got married and whatnot, I believe. Or I think she might have been married prior to that point. But yeah, I don't know when that match would have happened. Was that scheduled for a Raw in 2020 and then Kairi left and then we never got it? I don't remember. Richie said Asuka versus Io. We actually got that match, fun fact, at least once. I remember they headlined a SmackDown, I want to say in late 2023. 2023, they had a match on SmackDown for the WWE Women's title, and the EO retained the championship. There might have been some bullshit involved there, but I'm pretty sure they had a 20-minute fucking match on SmackDown a few years ago. I want it again, but I think we've actually already had that match. They also had a match at a house show I was at a few years ago. But again, we're not really counting house shows because if no one can really look it up and watch it, then it doesn't really count. It's not canon if it doesn't happen on TV, or at least a major house show. So they had a match prior to that point, but they did have a match on TV in late 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Johnny said Goldberg versus Shawn Michaels had a throwaway dream match on Raw in '03. Oh, there you go. So Goldberg and Shawn did have a throwaway dream match on Raw. Do not remember. I wasn't watching at that point, so I have no recollection of that at all. Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk in AEW. Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but not entirely, just because they were both baby faces at that point. Neither of them were ever heels in AEW. And Punk came in late 2021. Cody left by February 2022. So they were actually only ever really in the company together for a 5-month period. They interacted at certain points, I think, especially backstage. But as far as television, they were always kind of kept apart. That would have been a cool match. I still want Cody and Punk now in WWE. But I'm not really all that surprised that it did not happen in AEW. Veer versus Love Ziggler. Richie, that's a dream match of such epic proportions that it's not even worth imagining because I can't imagine what that match would look like. Veer and Love Ziggler is just too big of a match to even fathom, to be quite honest with you. WrestleMania would not even do it justice. Hogan, Hall, Nash versus Shawn, Triple H, X-Pac. Again, when would that have happened? 2002? Richie said the chat versus the like button. There you go. Hey, listen to Richie. Like that video. Like the video. Hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. That's a great dream match as well. Fernando said Triple H and Mr. Perfect did an angle together that went nowhere before Perfect left to WCW. Wow, I did not know that. Interesting. Would that have been in 95? I did not know that. Johnny said Kurt Angle versus Bryan Danielson in Ring of Honor 06 or 07. Jordan, who asked this question in the first place that I'll get to, you guys have a lot of great picks. I'll answer that question, like my picks as far as the most surprising matches that never happened. He wrote down Danielson and Angle as well. I'm not surprised that match did not happen. Kurt went right from WWE straight to TNA. Ring of Honor was a great alternative, but it wasn't TNA. TNA was paying way more money for a much lighter style, and he was going hard in TNA, but not as hard as he probably would have gone in Ring of Honor had he actually gone there in 05, 06. So I'm not surprised. Angle and Bryan Danielson did not happen. So I know you mentioned that one. I know you mentioned that one, Johnny, but Angle and Daniel, that was never going to happen. It could have happened in WWE, to be fair. When Angle came back in 2017, Bryan returned to the ring in 2018. It would not have been the match that it could have been in 2006, 2007. But that being said, they could have done it because, Kurt had a bunch of random fucking matches on TV. I think he faced AJ on TV at one point before he retired in 2019. He faced Samoa Joe at one point. He faced we got Kurt Angle versus Chad Gable. That's a dream match, but we actually got that match on Raw at that point. But they did not do Angle and Bryan because he was the heel WWE champion. That would have been cool, but they just never did it. Batista versus Brock, or Barista versus Brock. We mentioned Batista versus Brock, but Maria mentioned Barista versus Brock. I guess Brock just doesn't go to Starbucks, so I guess that's a match that's never happened. Millennial Noob said SummerSlam 2020. Oh, Asuka and Kyrie was the match for SummerSlam. I don't know if that was ever the plan, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Prime Kurt Angle versus Chad Gable would slap. I agree, Richie. I actually did not see your comment when I just said what I just said, when I said that we actually got Angle versus Chad. Obviously, it was a 5-minute sprint. I mean, it was a good match while it lasted, but Kurt was so beyond his... you probably already talked about Taker versus Sting. Mr. Strange Mania said, I did a little bit, but I'll go into more depth about it in a little bit. A few people mentioned Taker versus Sting. That was obviously first on my fucking list, which I have not given yet. I'm going through all of your chat questions here, or chat comments here first. But yeah, a prime Kurt Angle versus Chad Gable would have been fucking awesome. Unfortunately, was not meant to be. But that would have been cool. Kurt Angle versus Kevin Steen in Ring of Honor 07. Now we're just listing matches that would have been cool. That's not the point of the question is matches that I'm surprised did not happen. I'm not surprised that we never got Kurt Angle versus Kevin Steen. Kurt Angle was never going to sniff Ring of Honor. He was only ever a WWE or TNA guy to get paid those big bucks. And by the time he left TNA in 2016, he wasn't going to fucking Ring of Honor. He was doing indie shots, but he wasn't going to Ring of Honor. And by that point, when he left TNA, Kevin Owens was already in WWE. Daniel said Punk versus the Elite, LOL. And Veer versus Love Ziggler, take my money now. I agree. It's too big of a match to even fathom, like I said. Punk versus the Elite, I'm also not surprised did not happen. That would have been awesome, but I'm not surprised it didn't happen because just they didn't want to work with Punk, and I can't say I entirely blame them. Omega, it sounded like, was willing to work with Punk, and I feel like had Punk stayed, that match would have happened at some point. The Bucks may have just been so stubborn that they did not want to go back on their hatred for him, or they were just like, no. Realistically, you put that shit aside, you can all make money together by doing that match, but they just opted not to, so it never happened. Fernando even said Punk versus Kenny Omega in AEW. I agree. AJ, what's going on, brother? AJ said, hey, Graham, you should rank every King and Queen of the Ring winners. That's a good future idea, actually, for a WrestleRant ranks video. It's a great idea, actually. So a bit of a sneak peek here. Yesterday's video went up yesterday, obviously. If you haven't already checked it out, I did a massive tier list that I came across on tierlistmaker.com, ranking every AEW pay-per-view main event from Double or Nothing 2019 all the way through Double or Nothing 2025. So check that out if you haven't already. I actually already pre-recorded next week's video as well, and that was, I think, ranking inspired by Grunt, actually, who asked a similar question last week. I saw this also on tierlistmaker.com, ranking every WWE pay-per-view name of all time. I don't know if it included every pay-per-view name. Like, I don't remember seeing Fatal 4-Way in there, but it included a lot of pay-per-view names from the last 25, 30 years. And I rank them all. I rank them from best to worst. It's in a video next week on WrestleRant Ranks here on the channel, dropping Monday. But maybe the following week, on the Monday after King and Queen of the Ring, I can do an episode ranking all King and Queens of the Ring. That would be fun, because I did rank the Money in the Bank winners a couple of weeks ago. So thank you, AJ, for that idea. I'll actually have to write that down. Kurt Angle in WWE or TNA, Johnny said. Yeah, he wasn't going anywhere but those two companies. He wasn't going to Ring of Honor. Mr. Strange Mania actually said, I'm thinking Goldberg versus Stone Cold. Yeah, I mean, I think someone mentioned that earlier. I'm not surprised that match didn't happen, because, again, when Goldberg came in, he came in the day after Stone Cold had his last match, whether people knew that or not. So had they pushed it forward a little bit and booked Goldberg versus Stone Cold for Mania and had Stone Cold put over Goldberg on his way out and Goldberg on his way in, that could have worked. But I don't think that was ever the idea. Let's see. Backtracking a little bit here. Richie said, Beth Phoenix versus Rhea Ripley. I don't count that tag match from Elimination Chamber from a few years back. I am also surprised. That's a great mention. I am surprised that match never happened, because they did have that tag match, and that really should have led to them facing off one-on-one after Mania. Rhea lost that match. She wasn't pinned, but she lost that match. She then went on to become the SmackDown Women's Champion, and she was champion for a fucking year. You could have done with Beth coming out and saying, hey, I beat you in that tag match at Elimination Chamber. I want that match. I know that Beth wanted that match as well. They both wanted that match, and WWE just never booked it. I know Edge left the company that summer, but Beth was still under contract even before. But even prior to that, Edge left in like the summer/fall. You could have done Beth and Rhea right after Mania at SummerSlam, a card in which Rhea was not a part of, I don't think. Yeah, I am disappointed that we did not get that match. I am also surprised that we did not get that match. Johnny said, any thoughts on Private Party possibly leaving AEW? They should. I mean, they've had a lot of success. I mean, I say a lot of success in AEW. They really haven't. I mean, they're former AEW World Tag Team Champions. They spent the last 6 years there. I mean, they kind of were an organic, homegrown act, and they reached their ceiling. I mean, I'm very happy they won the tag titles, but that was their peak against the Bucks about a year ago. They proceeded to do absolutely nothing after that point. They were barely on television. They really weren't booked like threats, and they lost the belts within a matter of months to the Hurt Syndicate. And if that wasn't bad enough, they have not been on the show since. When Rampage disappeared, so did Private Party. They were fucking gone. So I know, like, the hesitation with, like, oh yeah, WWE can't hire everyone, which is true. They can't and they shouldn't. They're not hiring everyone that leaves AEW. But that being said, I would make an exception for Private Party. They're a tag team. WWE needs more teams. You could put them in NXT. You could put them on the main roster. They're a great team. I like Private Party a lot. What more can they even do in AEW? They won the tag titles. Tony Khan clearly is not interested in utilizing them at this point. It's not like they were pushed all that heavily before anyway. They've kind of gone the way of Santana and, Ortiz, where they never won the tag titles. At least Private Party did, but Santana Ortiz never did. Santana left, bet on himself, had a great run, and is having a great run right now in TNA. Ortiz is still in AEW. I think he got hurt, but he wasn't doing shit prior to that point anyway. I think Private Party should leave. I don't know when their contracts are up exactly. I think it's rumored to be this year. They should absolutely leave, and I would love to see them in WWE. At the very least, go anywhere else. AEW is great, but Tony Khan clearly has no plans of utilizing them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be benched for the last 5 months despite being healthy, to my knowledge. So they really should leave. Kevin Nash versus Stairs, Richie said. That's a good one. Johnny said Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley in an MMA style wrestling match. Yeah, I'm surprised that that third match, none of the matches they had in WWE, they had 3 of them actually. That would have been a match I was surprised that we never got, but we actually did end up getting it 3 times. None of those matches were like no DQ or like an underground match or a fight pit match. They never did that with those 2. They were all just regular standard singles matches. And the third match ended in a fucking DQ, and there was never any resolution to that. Brock moved on to Omos at WrestleMania, and Bobby wasn't on the card. So fuck that. Richie said Karrion Kross versus Bray Wyatt. Not sure if it was mentioned yet. No, that was not mentioned. Yeah, I guess I'm a little surprised that we did not get it. I mean, Bray, to be fair, I'm not entirely shocked that we didn't get that match. We probably would have at some point had Bray not passed. But Bray was only around for, a few months before he got sick, and then he passed 2 years ago. He only had one match, and that was against LA Knight. So they could have done the match. They were both on SmackDown at that point, late 2022. Karrion had just come back. That would have been a cool Mania match. But it looked like they were setting up Bray and fucking Bobby Lashley for some reason, which would have been awful. Not saying Karrion and Bray would have lit the world on fire, but as a feud, it would have been better, I think. And then Bray passed, and we never got it. And then when Karrion came up to the main roster the first time in 2021, Bray was already fired at that point, so we never got it then either. Mr. Strange, Mania, WWE 86 said, AJ Styles versus Shawn Michaels, something we will never see. Yeah, I mentioned that match earlier. Not shocked we didn't get it, but it would have been a great match. Johnny said Adam Cole versus Bryan Danielson in AEW. I am very surprised we did not get that match. If you were including AEW matches as well, I'm very surprised we have not gotten that match. We still could at some point. Danielson, I don't think is completely done. He might say that he is. I doubt that he's completely done. I'm sure he'll be back at some point. I don't know if it's going to be for a match like that. I mean, I don't know. With Adam Cole losing as much luster as he has in recent years, that's probably not a top priority for Danielson to come back for or for AEW to book. But yeah, I'm surprised that we didn't get that match. We did get the match in general. Thankfully, we did end up getting Cole and Danielson, two great former Ring of Honor World Champions in WWE for the NXT title on SmackDown. How fucking random is that? They did it on the SmackDown right before Survivor Series 2019. Not right before Survivor Series, but during that Survivor Series season when NXT was invading SmackDown and Raw. They did do that match, and it was an awesome match. I am surprised we never got it in AEW, though. I agree. Chris Faplander, I love the fucking name. I know you've been here before in the chats in the past, but I think that name is hilarious. Anyway, you said Ralph Ziggler versus Kane. I agree, Daniel. I don't know who Ralph Ziggler is, but that match does sound great. Did Dolph Ziggler, I don't know about Ralph. Ralph might be Dolph's older brother, but I'm sure they've done Dolph and Kane. I mean, come on. That match has definitely happened. Now it's like bothering me to even look it up. Let's see. Let's check this out. Dolph Ziggler. I am almost like 1,000% positive because I remember at least one match they had. Dolph and Kane had a match on Raw in 2015. They had another match on Raw in 2014 or on SmackDown and on Halloween. I think they had a match on a steel cage match in 2014 on SmackDown. I think they had matches even before that. Yeah, those two had a lot of matches. They had a whole bunch of matches in 2014, a match in 2015. So technically, I guess to your point, Dolph has never had a match, or Dolph has had a whole bunch of matches against Kane. Ralph, his brother, has never had a match against Kane. So you know what? I am a little, that's a great idea. Ralph, but I guess my question to you, Chris, is who is Ralph related to? Is Ralph the older brother? I'm thinking Ralph is the older brother of Dolph, and then Dolph's younger brother is Love Ziggler. I think it's Love Ziggler, Dolph Ziggler, Ralph Ziggler. That sounds like it's the hierarchy in the Ziggler family. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I feel like Chris might be a Tyreek in disguise. Johnny said John Cena versus Hulk Hogan either at SummerSlam 05 or 06. It wouldn't have worked because in 06 he was working with Edge and Orton. They had nothing for Orton to do, so he faced Hogan on that show instead. And then in 05 he was working with he was the WWE champion, and he was working with Jericho, who was on his way out. So now I'm not surprised that match didn't happen. You weren't going to do it on either one of those shows because Cena was busy with other stuff at that point. Johnny said Jade Cargill versus Britt Baker. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that match didn't happen. I mean, Jade was almost entirely ever in the TBS title picture. I don't think she ever challenged for the regular Women's World Championship. So I'm a little surprised that the match didn't happen. But at the same time, Britt was always exclusive to the main women's title picture, and Jade was exclusive to the TBS title picture. So I'm not surprised that match didn't happen. Jade Cargill versus Hikaru Shida, sorry. I can't even pronounce her name properly. We haven't seen her on TV in so long. But I don't think that's an AEW issue. I saw the other day that she has like a visa issue, so I think that's why she's not on TV right now. But yeah, I'm a little surprised we didn't get Cargill versus Shida. I don't know if Shida's ever challenged for the TBS title. I know she's gone for the main women's title a whole bunch. She's a former, like, 3-time AEW Women's World Champion. But yeah, Cargill and Shida would have been good. Strange Mania said Tony Khan books his favorites and thinks that that's enough, hence why Mercedes hasn't lost the title in AEW. I mean, I don't know what the plan is with Mercedes. I'm glad he's protecting her because she is a star. But what's the end game with the Tony Storm match? That's my question. Is Tony Storm winning? And if so, why would you build up Mercedes for a year just to lose in a match that she shouldn't really be losing? But then if she wins, then she has like fucking 7 titles that she doesn't really need. So to me, it's a lose-lose situation, at least in my opinion. Richie said, knock, knock, who's there? Bobby who? Exactly. Yeah, I remember that when they were feuding back in 2023. Or was that 2022? Either one. I remember that line, though, from Brock Lesnar. That shit was funny. So dumb, but it was funny. Johnny said, when are we going to get Swerve Strickland versus Keith Lee? Probably never at this point. I'm not sure Keith Lee will ever be back. He's been medically disqualified for like a year and a half, brother. We were supposed to get that match at World's End 2023. 2023. He missed all of 2024, and he has not wrestled or appeared at all in 2025. He's probably done, unfortunately. I would love to see him come back, but it's been so long, and I think it's because he can't compete. I don't think it's a case where they're not using him. I think it is because he can't compete. It really sucks, but that's just the reality of it. Sasha Banks versus Melina. I mean, they did kind of do that in the Rumble in 2022, but beyond that, Melina was long gone by the time Sasha debuted in WWE on the main roster in 2015, so that match was never going to happen. Ralph Ziggler is sending me, Richie said. Yeah, that was random. And then Chris Fatlander just disappeared, so I don't know. They haven't had a chance to correct themselves or elaborate on what they meant by that. CM Punk versus Colt Cabana in a backstage shoot fight in AEW? Yeah, that would have been funny. Melina versus Alicia Fox, too. Yeah, I think, Richie, you know what? I think they actually did have a rematch, to be fair. To Cameron's credit, I know Cameron's favorite match of all time is Melina and Alicia Fox from SummerSlam 2010. I think they had a rematch on Raw the following night, or at least soon after. I remember a situation where Melina beat her in a rematch. I don't know how I remember that, do not ask, but I'm pretty sure they had at least one more match after that. Johnny said Big Show versus Shaq at Mania. Yeah, they were building that up a few different times. I think they were building that up for 2012, I think. 2017, definitely. But I think they were building that up a couple different times for Mania, and it just never happened. But guess what? I was going to say you could do it in 2K, because Shaq's in 2K apparently now. I saw the video yesterday. He's in 2K25, but Big Show's not. So you're just going to have to build Big Show and do that match that way in 2K. That's the closest we'll ever come. At this point, the match would just be a travesty anyway. It wouldn't have been great regardless, but at least they did interact in that Battle Royal at WrestleMania 32. I think that would have been the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So they did interact there, to be fair. Ralph Ziggler is hilarious the more I think about it. It's just so random. I mean, I'm sure it was a typo on Chris Fatlander's part, but Ralph Ziggler's that's a wild name. Dean Ambrose versus Mick Foley. Again, not surprised we didn't get it, but it would have been cool if we got it. I know they were teasing it, building towards it in 2012, and then Foley had to retire. He was told, hey, never wrestle again, otherwise it's probably not great for your health. But that would have been cool, though. Nemeth to the third power, Richie said. And Fernando also said, let's not forget about the long-lost cousin, Lust Ziggler, LOL. There's a lot of Zigglers out there. Lust Ziggler, Ralph Ziggler, Dolph Ziggler, Love Ziggler. Love and Lust Ziggler is a great fucking tag team, I'll tell you that. Nick, Ryan, and Ralph. Yeah, those are the 3 brothers. I guess the cousins are Love and Lust. Ziggler's got a whole fucking family tree that we're going through here. We're giving him a lot of easy publicity. Johnny said Mariah May had matches left on the table in AEW. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of matches they did not do with her. Obviously, she never interacted with Mercedes Moné. I don't think we ever got Chris Statlander and Mariah May, did we not? I don't think we did. She did face a whole lot of people. I mean, she faced Thunder Rosa. She faced Anna Jay, I believe. She had a whole bunch of matches with Anna Jay. They were good, too. Obviously, Toni Storm a whole bunch of times. You know, I'm trying to think of who else. Willow Nightingale she faced a few times. But yeah, there were a few people in AEW that she never had a chance to mix it up with. I don't think we ever got Britt Baker and Mariah May. Not that we missed out on this big banger of a match, but I don't think they ever interacted. Let's see. Richie said, as much as I dislike her, I really do have to say that Sasha Banks versus AJ Lee could have been a banger. Yeah, at the right time, that could have been fun. AJ left in 2014. Sasha debuted on the main roster in 2015, so they just missed each other by about a year on the main roster. But I will tell you this, a dream match for a lot of people is AJ Lee and Bayley. We actually did get that match. They had a match in NXT, I think a non-title match when AJ Lee was Divas champion. It was one of Bayley's first ever televised matches in NXT. They had a match in 2013 on NXT. And that was it. AJ went right back to the main roster. It was like a quick one-off. But yeah, she worked with Bayley, not Sasha, but she did work with Bayley. Ric Flair versus Jerry Lawler. I guess that match never happened, I guess. I don't know. Big Show, Sid Vicious. Cody versus Travis Scott. Oh, God, no. Well, you're seeing a squash match, Johnny, so I guess that's probably for the better. Dolph Ziggler is the new bloodline. Yeah, we need a Ziggler bloodline. Love Ziggler, Ralph Ziggler, Dolph Ziggler, Nick and Ryan. Lot of Zigglers out there. Goldberg versus Warrior would have been just a fucking piece of shit of a match. I mean, come on. That match would have been terrible. Am I also surprised that we did not get that match? No, I'm not. I think Warrior only went into WCW to lose to Hogan, so Hogan could get his win back from WrestleMania 6. Was that it? Did Warrior ever really wrestle in WCW beyond that? How many matches did he actually have in WCW? Now I'm curious. I know he had that terrible Halloween Havoc match with Hogan. Because that's the only time that it would have happened, because Goldberg was not in WWE until 03, and Warrior last wrestled there in the late 90s. Let's see. Ultimate Warrior win-loss record. I am very curious. How many matches did he have? He only had 3 matches in WCW. He had the Hogan match at Halloween Havoc 98. He wrestled on Nitro in October of 98 with Sting. Oh, that's cool. They reunited because I know they were partners back in the day. That's cool. They beat Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan. What a fucking match, honestly. That sounds pretty cool, to be honest with you. They won by DQ. And he also wrestled at Fall Brawl in a War Games match. I forgot that he was part of War Games. It was Diamond Dallas Page, Roddy Piper, and the Warrior. And then it was 3-on-3-on-3. Okay, so it was DDP, Roddy Piper, and the Warrior versus Bret Hart, Hogan, and Stevie Ray. What a fucking team. And then Kevin Nash, Lex Luger, and Sting. Not a bad match, to be honest with you. But yeah. Goldberg and Warrior did not happen. I mean, Warrior, when did Goldberg debut? He won the title on Nitro in 98, did he not? So he lost it in December to Kevin Nash. So Hogan and the Warrior happened at Halloween Havoc non-title, but you could have done the match. You could have had Goldberg just quickly squash Warrior. I doubt Warrior would have wanted to do it, but you could have done it, to be honest. They just chose not to. Match probably wouldn't have been good. Warrior versus Sting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would have been interesting. The love line, that's funny. Saraya versus Harley Cameron. Yeah, when Saraya left the company a couple months ago, they never really explained what happened to the Outcast. I mean, the Outcasts were a terrible group anyway, but it would have been nice if she put over Harley Cameron on her way out. I just hate when people leave or they get fired before they kind of write them off the show. It's supposed to be a fucking television show. I mean, the WWE constantly compare themselves to all General Hospital and all these actual shows that have storylines where people are not always great storylines, but they write people off and they give people send-offs. Imagine watching any television show where people just disappear. I saw Carlito talking about that the other day, and I completely agree. I know it's not how the business works, but to me it would be ideal. Anyway, yeah, he was in War Games, Fernando said. Bret Hart versus Rey Mysterio in WCW. I mean, when would that have happened? Was Bret Hart ever a heel in WCW? Rey Mysterio was. So I guess that would have been interesting. Alexis versus Tyreek. That's the real match that we need, Reggie. I agree. And Richie also said that's the match where Warrior hit a 450 splash off the cage. Yeah, yes. You're right, Richie. I forgot about that. It was that match where he hit the 450 splash over the cage. I totally forgot about that. I think it was that, and then he had like a Hurricane Rana off the stage. Like, if you thought that Jeff Hardy Swanton bomb off the stage to Umaga or Randy Orton back in 2008 was crazy, you should see what the Warrior did in that cage match back in 98, man. It was nuts. British Bulldog versus Steven Regal. Did that match never happen? I guess not. I don't know. If it didn't, that would have been cool. All right, so let's get into these questions here. We've spent enough time on these, fantasy booking all these matches. That did not happen. I'll give you my picks here in a second. Alexis said I would win. Well, you can't win, Alexis, if you are Tyreek. She denies that she's Tyreek. I'm not saying she is Tyreek, but there's some, like, to quote AJ Styles about the flat earth theory, there's some things about it that make sense. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just saying it makes sense. I'm not saying that about Flat Earth, by the way. AJ Styles said that about the Earth being flat. I'm saying that about Alexis being Tyreek. Just to be clear before anyone gets confused. And British Bulldog versus Steven Seagal, Richie, would be fucking awesome. I mean, I'm a Steven Seagal fan. Maybe not nowadays. I don't know what he's done the last. I haven't seen a movie of his in like the last 20 years, but some of the shit that he was doing in the last, early 2000s, late 90s were pretty good. Half Past Dead, I think he's in that movie. Fantastic movie. Love Half Past Dead. Great movie. Anyway, let's answer some of these questions. If you want to send in a question ahead of time for the show, for me to answer here on the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Monday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video, after we're done streaming, of course. And I'll include your question in next week's edition. And like I said earlier, channel members, if you send in a question ahead of time through any of the aforementioned avenues, I will answer before anyone else's. And that's the case with Mr. Average Grunt. So he sent in this question from Twitter. He asked, hot or cold, fans of women's wrestling? And by the way, I'll go back to the chat in a little bit. So don't think I'm ignoring you. I'll answer a couple questions and then we'll go back to the chat momentarily. But Grunt asked, hot or cold, fans of women's wrestling are silly for asking for more non-title women's feuds and more women's championships at the same time when both WWE and AEW have shown to struggle with doing either of these things effectively, let alone both. So I'm going to say that's cold because I don't agree. If what you're saying is, I don't think you're saying, now that I reread your question, because when I read it the first time before I hit record, I was a little confused, and I thought you were saying that fans should not complain about wanting more non-title stories because WWE doesn't do it well. Are you saying, maybe that is what you're saying, but I'm reading your question now, and the way I interpret it is that you don't want people to complain about wanting both at the same time. That I agree with. Honestly, anyone advocating for more women's championships at this point is not fucking paying attention. WWE, what more women's titles do we need? They just introduced mid-card belts, which even in the first place wasn't entirely necessary, but they've kind of corrected course with the IC title. The US title's getting better. Zelina Vega's not super over, but I like what they've been doing with her. But we don't need more women's titles in WWE. AEW people are now advocating, some people are advocating for women's tag titles. Absolutely fucking not. That would be a terrible idea. Absolutely not. So again, the people that are asking for both, that is very counterproductive, I agree. There are some people that want more non-title feuds and other people who want more championships. I fall in the former category. I fall in the category of people who want more non-title feuds in both companies. Now, I don't agree when you say that AEW and WWE have shown a struggle with doing either of those things effectively. You're not wrong. But that doesn't mean that people shouldn't complain about wanting to see more of them. The more people complain about wanting non-title feuds, even though WWE and AEW may not always do them super well, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't advocate for them. Because that means WWE then just won't do it. Go back 10 years to the Give Divas a Chance movement. All right? Women's wrestling in WWE at that point was just almost non-existent. They had barely any women in that division. It was not fun to watch. But we were advocating for better women's stories, more women's wrestling. And if the argument at that point was, well, don't complain about that. Don't lobby for that because WWE has proven that they can't do women's wrestling properly. I call bullshit. We have gotten non-title stories before in both companies with women that I think can be great. Toni Storm and Mariah May did end up being over a championship. There's an amazing story that could have existed, even if it wasn't over a championship. And in WWE, we're getting Lyra and Becky now. That is also over a title. But you could have done that feud even not over a championship, and it would have worked just as well. So I say, no, keep advocating for more stuff like that. The more championships thing, I disagree. We do not need, like, what you're saying, I think applies more to AEW and women's tag titles. So, I mean, I guess you could also use my own argument against me. Like, oh, why would you advocate for less women's tag team wrestling? Like, if we continue to complain about it, then hopefully WWE will improve the booking. We're at a point now, though, where WWE's tag titles for the women have been around for 6 fucking years. You are right. At least as far as that is concerned, they have proven they cannot book women's tag team wrestling properly. I mean, even TNA has women's tag titles that they've booked better than WWE's by far, and even those I don't really give a fuck about. They're just not great. I would much rather see the women utilized in all of these companies going after secondary titles, secondary other championships, whatever. You could do great women's tag team stories. I don't think I've ever seen one in any company. That's not just a WWE issue or an AEW issue. Women's tag team stories could work, and I'm not saying women's tag teams should be eliminated entirely, but to have tag titles devoted, I mean, it's just not worth it, because for every Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, who are a great women's team, you have no other teams for them to face. So, I mean, these companies, it would be nice to see them actually build up a tag team division, but we're not going to get that. Non-title stories, to me, is really where it's at. The men, same thing, more non-title stories. And we have a lot of non-title stories with the men because you have a lot of men with nothing to do. They're not chasing a championship, so they feud with each other. Why don't we get more of that with the women? With stories that make sense and are compelling. So I'm going to say cold on that one, but that's where I'm coming from as far as why I want to see more non-title feuds with the women. WWE and AEW don't always do a great job with them, but that's not to say that I shouldn't be complaining about it or advocating for more of it, because I don't want to just settle for what we have. I mean, they have to improve somehow, you know? Anyway, Jordan B's question is the headline question that we've been talking about for the first 50 minutes of the video. What are some matches that I'm surprised never happened? So his picks were, this is what he said. For me, it's Rey Mysterio versus Triple H, which I had to check, by the way. I thought we got that match on Raw in 05, the night that Eddie passed. Not the night that Eddie passed, but that Eddie Guerrero Memorial show. I thought they did Rey and Triple H. I guess not. I guess they did Rey and Shawn Michaels instead. Which was a great match, and they had at least another match after that. They also faced off in the Rumble in 06, but I guess Rey and Triple H never had a one-on-one match, which is insane to me. He also included Samoa Joe and John Cena. That would also be on my list because they were in the same company for a number of years, and they never fucking did it, which pisses me off. They could have did it. They did a tag team match on Raw in 2015 or 2017, but never a one-on-one match, which is fucking annoying. Brock Lesnar versus the Great Khali. I don't know why you thought you would have. How are you surprised we never got that match? Great Khali debuted in 07. Brock left in 04. Khali left the company in 2014. Brock returned in 2012, but they were not going to waste a Brock Lesnar match on the Great fucking Khali. So I don't know why you'd be surprised that match never happened. But anyway, Jeff Hardy versus Rey Mysterio. I'm also surprised that match never happened. Oh, wait. Did they have a match? I feel like they had maybe a random match on SmackDown a few years ago. Probably not. But I thought they did. Anyway, Bryan Danielson versus Kurt Angle. I already talked about that one. John Cena versus Kofi Kingston. I would include that one as well. I'm very surprised that match never happened. Cena had matches with Big E, with Xavier Woods during the New Day's run, but never Kofi. They interacted in a Rumble or two, but never one-on-one, interestingly. Undertaker versus Umaga. I'm also surprised we never got that. Cesaro and Drew McIntyre. Never had a one-on-one match. That is surprising. Natalya versus Victoria. I mean, the overlap there was only a couple of months. Victoria left WWE in middle of 08, or I think early 09. Natalya debuted in like the spring of 08, and they were partners, but they were both heels that entire time, so I'm not really surprised that match never happened. Rollins and Ricochet, I would include that one. I am very surprised that during Ricochet's 5 or 6 year stint with WWE on the main roster, that we never got that match with Rollins and Ricochet. That would have been great. Charlotte Flair and Mickie James, another match I'm very surprised that we never got. Mickie had matches with Asuka in WWE. She had matches with Sasha Banks, I want to say. Maybe not. I know she had a number of matches with Asuka, but she never faced Charlotte. I know that. She did face Becky. I remember she faced Becky. I don't know if she ever faced Bayley or Sasha one-on-one. I feel like she probably did. I think she did. But yeah, we never got Mickie and Charlotte, interestingly. Asuka and Ronda Rousey, I'm surprised we never got as well. I agree with that. And Cesaro versus Shinsuke. Another match I'm surprised we never got. They were partners at one point, but never opponents. So my list, and again, these are only ones that came to mind. I'm sure there's many, many more. These are matches I'm surprised that we never got. Obviously, Undertaker and Sting. I'm disappointed. I'm not shocked that we didn't get that match. I know why we didn't get that match. But we really should have gotten that match at WrestleMania 15 or 2015 at WrestleMania 31. It's egregious that it did not happen. It's just fucking ridiculous that match did not happen. But especially because they had the opportunity to do it and they did not. I'm surprised they did not do it when they had the chance. Maybe they thought they can get away with doing it in Texas. I don't know. But they didn't get that chance because Sting had to retire before that, at least for the first time. Cena and Kingston I mentioned. Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. I think they ended up having a match in Mexico outside of WWE years ago when Rey left WWE. But in WWE, the rumor for years was that WWE really wanted to do Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. I think in a mask versus mask match, probably not. They wanted to set a record for most amount of masks sold at a single event or something dumb like that. Sin Cara was largely a bust in WWE, so it just never ended up happening. They did team for a little while there, I think in late 2012, early 2013, but then both guys got hurt and never happened. But yeah, the one-on-one match, I don't think ever happened in WWE. Outside of WWE, yes. When he was Mystico, yes. In WWE, I don't think it ever happened. Undertaker and Sting I mentioned already. You mentioned Ricochet and Seth Rollins. I'm also very surprised, unless I'm wrong here, Ricochet and Finn Balor also never had a match in WWE. I'm sure they had a match in New Japan years ago. Ricochet debuted on the main roster helping Finn Balor against Bobby and Leo Rush back in 2019, but they never had a one-on-one match, interestingly. Even when Ricochet was on Raw and he could have interacted with the Judgment Day, they never did the match, interestingly. John Cena and Matt Hardy. Fun fact for you, I thought they did, but they never had a one-on-one match on TV. The only thing I could find was that they had a match at a house show in late 2002 that Matt Hardy won. But on television, they never had a match. So in WWE canon, John Cena and Matt Hardy have never had a match. They teamed a couple times on TV. They've been a part of many multi-man matches. They actually teased the idea of a feud back in 2009 when Matt Hardy was a heel and he got moved to Raw. But he got hurt before the match could happen, so it never happened. But yeah, Cena and Matt Hardy, I'm actually really surprised that match never happened. Brock and Batista we mentioned earlier. Ronda and Becky we mentioned earlier. Both matches I'm surprised we never got at either point on the main roster, one-on-one. And then last but not least, Brock and Sheamus. Now, I think they had at least one or two matches that were house show matches. But again, we're not including house show matches. They never did it on TV. Which is kind of surprising because when Brock came back to the company in 2012, Sheamus was a top star. So for a lot of people, that was the match they wanted to see because Sheamus was like a hard-hitting competitor. He still is now. But he's very physical. That match would have been a fucking war. And they never ended up doing it. Sheamus was a babyface at that point too. So when Brock was still a heel for the first, few years of his WWE return run, they could have done that match. Now by 2015, 2016, Sheamus wasn't really a threat anymore. That was the League of Nations Sheamus that was kind of a loser by then. But they could have done the match prior to that point. The timing never really worked out. So I'm kind of surprised we never got that match. So those are my picks. I will go through the next three questions from Micah real quick before I open up the chat again. So just a heads up on that. Again, I'm not ignoring you, but want to get through a few of these questions before we continue on with the chat. Mike has said, would Triple H book Naomi to be the first woman to cash in and fail in WWE? Brother, that would be terrible. Could he do it? Yes, he could. But with all honesty, all of the, I don't know if allegations is the right word, but there's a lot of, rhetoric. I don't know if that's the right word either, but there's a lot of conversation, let's put it that way, surrounding Triple H and how he books black superstars. We've talked about it before. I talked about it when R-Truth did not get renewed a couple of weeks ago. And then he obviously got brought back. But one of my bottom lines in that video was that not even the booking of certain African-American talents in WWE, but just the sheer amount of them. The Raw, I think the New Day might be the only black wrestlers on the roster that are male. And on SmackDown, it's not much better. I think R-Truth is back now, but it was R-Truth, the Prophets, Apollo Crews, who was hurt, and Carmelo Hayes. There might be someone else, but on the active roster for the men, that is it. That is fucking egregious. And they have a lot of other ethnicities, which is great. But I'm just saying for black performers, for the men specifically, not a whole lot of variety there. And four of those guys are in a tag team. The Prophets and New Day, obviously. So anyway, my point is, especially with the way that he's booked Carmelo Hayes, the way that the Business Hurt Syndicate, whatever, wasn't really treated like a big deal under Triple H's regime in WWE, it would not be a great look for Naomi to be the first woman to cash in and lose. And even putting the race stuff aside, it would just be stupid anyway. She's doing such a great job of the current character. This is the best Naomi's ever been. In-ring wise, character wise. And I've always liked Naomi, but she's been around forever. And this is the best that she's ever been. To have her cash in and lose would just be stupid. I think the idea could be to have Jade win Queen of the Ring and then have her win the belt from Tiffany at SummerSlam and then Naomi cashes in. Kind of predictable, but I would do that. And then you can have Jade chase Naomi. You could have Bianca chase Naomi. That could lead to Jade versus Bianca at Mania somehow. I don't know, but yeah, Naomi should not cash in and lose. There were a lot of women that could have cashed in and lose. Nikki Cross being one of them because that was a complete fucking waste of the briefcase a few years ago. Trying to think who else. They've actually done well at the women's Money in the Bank winners in recent years. I was happy when Liv won. She cashed in too quickly. But I was happy when she won. I was very happy when Tiffany won, when Io won. When Asuka won, I didn't really care, but, that was because Becky had to leave, so they gave her the belt instead. But anyway, Naomi cashing in to lose would be stupid, so hopefully that's not the case. His second question, would a Ron Killings feud versus Triple H's type storyline have been better than the one that we're getting with John Cena? Ron Killings versus the establishment, the people that fired him from WWE, as like a lunatic character. I think that sounds better in theory than in execution, because what does that even look like? I don't really want Triple H on the show as a regular character. He can't wrestle, so we're not getting R-Truth and Triple H anyway. Even if he could wrestle, I don't really care about that match. Two 50-year-old guys fighting it out, no thanks. In 2025, no thanks. I think you're booking it like a Daniel Bryan type storyline. I just don't really think that works. I mean, it works with the idea that TKO fired Ron Killings or didn't renew him. But to incorporate that in the storyline would be then it would force them to admit they fucked up by not renewing him. Now, they are incorporating his departure into the storyline, but they're kind of using Cena as the scapegoat because he's the heel right now. It's easier to do Killings and Cena because they already have the pre-established feud going into Saturday Night's Main Event a couple of weeks ago. Cena's the WWE champion. Ron Killings might want that belt one more time, or just one time period before he retires. It's just a lot easier because what is like Killings feuding with the establishment? What does that even look like? Like Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce, like they don't wrestle. Nick Aldis should, but they're both baby faces anyway for the most part. Triple H shouldn't be on TV. I mean, I guess you could do like an authority type thing, but I don't really want an authority. And Ron Killings being like the Daniel Bryan of 2014, I think Ron Killings, what they're doing with him is great, but I'd rather him just have one last run. He doesn't have to feud with the company. They're not going to do that anyway because that would, again, require them to be like, yeah, we fucked up by, letting him go or whatever. But then that would get into the whole, like, if you do that, you would then have to acknowledge all the ticket prices and all the issues that people have with the TKO run. You're not bringing back Carlito. You're not bringing back Valhalla. So it's just not a great look, and they probably don't want to lean into that by using the real-life heat that they have in a storyline sense where it kind of brings it to light and encourages people to hate the TKO era, which is not the point. They want to be the baby faces here. They want to be liked like any corporate company would want to be. So, no, I don't really like that idea. I'm not even really sure what that would entail exactly. Just keep it with Killings and Cena. And your third question, Micah, will you be purchasing a Nintendo Switch 2 in the future? Probably not. I don't even have the one. I've used the one with people that have Nintendo Switch, and it's great. I've played the Mario Party game, Mario Kart, Lego Star Wars on there. It's great. I think the Nintendo Switch is awesome. I likely would not buy the Nintendo Switch for myself. I don't really have enough time to play video games as it is, but if I do play games, that's usually on the PS4 that I have, or the 2K games, or the Spider-Man game and shit like that. I probably would not go out and buy myself a Switch 2 because I, for sure as fuck no, I would probably never use it. It's more for occasional playing, like for the Mario Party with other people. Mario Kart is awesome. Would I pay as much money as they're charging for the game and the console itself? No. If it was gifted to me, I would use it or play it or whatever. That's about it, though. I would not probably go out and buy it myself because I don't really have an incentive to, and I'm not, streaming myself playing those games. So I'll just stick to the PS4, to be honest with you. If they had it on PC, I have a PC now that would probably work with that sort of stuff, but I don't think they released those games on PC. I think it's only ever like in the Switch form. The Switch is awesome, but I just wouldn't have enough time to really get the most of my money that I'd be paying for that console. So anyway, going back to the chat here. Let's see what you guys are saying before we get back to the scheduled questions. Richie mentioned a very important one, Shark Boy versus Cheeseburger. If you know, you know. That would have been great. And TNA, that would have been awesome. Or Ring of Honor. Johnny said women's trios titles in WWE. Johnny, absolutely fucking not. Johnny, no. No. Maria said, as a woman, I don't want more women's titles. They don't do much with the ones they have now. I agree, Maria. Fernando asked, what are your thoughts on Goldberg versus Gunta versus Saturday Night's Main Event in Atlanta? I'm fine with it. I have no issue with it. I thought the setup was fine. It's a match that makes sense. Does it need to be for the world title? No. Do I wish they had Goldberg say, hey, I'll put my career on the line in order to get a shot at your belt? Yes. I do wish they had made more sense as to why Goldberg's getting a shot at the title when he's done nothing to deserve it, but he's a fucking part-timer, so who gives a shit, I guess. It's the part-time logic, I suppose. But either way, I like the idea of the match. I honestly have no issue with it being in Atlanta either. The Saudi Arabia stuff, his matches in Saudi have largely not been good. I mean, the match with Taker fucking sucked. He had the match with The Fiend that fucking sucked in Saudi. The Bobby match was good at Crown Jewel 2021. But a lot of his other matches in Saudi have not been good. So I like the fact that he's retiring in Atlanta. It'll be a better crowd, better environment. The Roman match also in Saudi that he had was fine, but it was way too short. This should also be short. Goldberg's been hurt apparently in the training for this match a few different times. He said his left knee is like shot or it's injured, whatever. Not a great sign. I don't even know why he would say that publicly, to be honest. Maybe he wants to exceed people's expectations by having a great match when he shows that he's not hurt. I don't know. Unless he just is too honest for his own good. But regardless, I like the idea of the match. It's a win for Gunther, hopefully. If you have Goldberg win, shoot me now. But, yeah, it's on TV, which is fine because the match should not exceed a few minutes anyway. Like, I would be pissed about, like, Cena and Punk being on Saturday Night's Main Event because that should be like a 20-minute match with no commercials. Gunther and Goldberg, I don't really care because it should be short regardless. And he can retire in the South, where he's from. He has history in Atlanta from WCW. I like that a lot. So, does he need one more match? No. But the fact that they're doing it with it being with Gunther, and hopefully it's a win for Gunther and he can retire Goldberg, I like that. So hopefully they've executed properly. I'm not opposed to the idea of them doing that. Big E versus Brock for the belt. Yeah, I mean, they could have done that back in 2021, 2022, but Brock beat him in a multi-man match and Big E just moved on as if he was never a world champion, which was kind of crazy. Kofi versus Lesnar 2 no squash match. Yeah, because they had a match of Beast in the East that was, obviously, it was a squash, but it was basically not as much of a squash as the Fox premiere match was in 2019. No L said, and here I thought Triple H learned from the old man. I guess not. Goldberg's going to win, then Seth will cash in afterwards. Absolutely fucking not. Do not give them ideas. I'm not saying that will happen. I don't really think it will. But that would be awful. That would be terrible. Fernando said, very disappointed with the Sin Cara run. Yeah, I was too. But, he's had a Mystico for as much hype as he had going into WWE 15 years ago. He's had a really good career. He must be in like his mid-40s now. He has to be. Early 40s? I mean, how young was he when WWE hired him? But he left WWE, the original Mystico, because they kept on with the Sin Cara character for years after he left with Hunico under the mask. But Mystico left WWE. He's had a great run. I've been watching him recently in AEW and MLW, and he's had great matches in both companies. I think he's actually facing MJF this coming week on Dynamite. Ricochet versus Bobby Lashley in AEW? Yeah, I mean, at some point, maybe. I think in WWE they had a match that was like a fucking minute, right? I don't remember, but in AEW that would be fine. The Rockers versus the Rock and Roll Express, that would have been cool. They were never in the same place at the same time, I don't think, but that would have been cool. Johnny mentioned FTR versus the Hardy Boys. We actually did get that match. I remember, I think Jeff got hurt, but they did do that match on Raw, because I think they did do the match in FTR 1. It was when they were the Revival, obviously. They beat the Hardy Boys, and I think a lot of people thought that would be the catalyst to turn them broken and shit, but then FTR got hurt, so the feud never really continued. They did the match on Raw. It was a pretty throwaway match. FTR won, which was cool, but then one of the guys from FTR got hurt, so the match never happened. Fernando said Vader versus Big Show. Yeah, I guess that could have happened in WCW. That could have been entertaining. Kane versus Bobby Lashley. Yeah, I guess that match never happened, did it? Interesting. HBK versus Rob Van Dam, another one very surprising. Mankind versus Sabu. Medusa versus Trish. I mean, Medusa and Trish were never like in the same time period, but the other matches I'm surprised that we didn't get, to be honest with you. Let's see. Johnny Wrestling versus Daniel Bryan in WWE. Yeah, not surprised we didn't get it. I mean, Johnny Gargano did not hit the main roster until 2022 after Daniel was long gone from the company. But that would have been a great match because they're very similar. The Fiend versus the Demon King, Finn Balor. Yeah, I'm also surprised they did not do that. They did Balor losing the Fiend at SummerSlam 2019. He got squashed basically by the Fiend. And then Balor went to NXT and he never came back. And when he got back to the main roster at that point, I think when they brought back Finn to the main roster, they fired Bray Wyatt like that same month. Literally like days or weeks later. So the match never happened. Zach, thank you for joining us. David the Goliath, thank you for joining us as well. Thank you for the chat talking about the Fiend versus Demon King. Fernando said the Elite versus the Undisputed Kingdom in AEW. Yeah, I was also surprised that didn't happen, but I guess, Adam Cole, I think, was still hurt at that point. Kyle O'Reilly was hurt. Bobby Fish left the company. It's a bummer that match did not happen. That sucks. Let's see. Santino versus R-Truth, David said. I feel like that match had to have happened, right? I mean, come on. Let's see. Let's look that up. R-Truth. I mean, they were the two biggest comedy characters in WWE for the last 20 fucking years. Did they never have a match? I don't know if they ever had a match. They teamed with Zack Ryder against 3MB. Man, I don't think they ever had a match. Wow, that's crazy. You're right. I guess R-Truth and Santino never had a match. Maybe because they were both baby faces. I guess that's why they never had a match. Interesting. FTR and Red Dragon in AEW. They did not have a match, I guess. Yeah, I think they were part of a multi-man match. I want to say it was the Bucks, Red Dragon, and FTR. I could be wrong about that. I feel like they had a triple threat tag title match or a four-way tag title match years ago. But straight up, I don't think we ever got that match, unfortunately. We have gotten Undisputed Kingdom versus FTR and AEW recently, but that was Strong and O'Reilly, not O'Reilly and Fish. Richie said, 58-year-old man with a limp. How is Goldberg more banged up heading into a match when he's done nothing for a majority of his career? I don't know. But he complained about wanting the match, and that's why we're here. That's the only reason why this is happening. Grunt, what's going on, brother? Grunt, thank you for joining. Saying, hey, folks. Grunt, hope you're doing well. I answered your question earlier, talking about your hot or cold question, so if you want to rewind and check that out. This match needs to be 2 minutes at most. Yeah, on average, yes, for sure. What is your favorite Goldberg match of all time? That's a good question, Johnny. I mean, I wasn't watching him in WCW, so I can't say him and like Hogan or something, but probably him and Brock from WrestleMania 33. They had a great sprint. I was at that show. Much better than the actual main event of Taker and Roman Reigns. That match sucked. I think I liked it more at the time, but in retrospect, it was not a good match at all. But anyway, my favorite Goldberg match, probably the match with Brock at WrestleMania 33 in 2017. They had a really, really fun sprint. It was much better than their Survivor Series match, which was 90 seconds. It was much, much better than the WrestleMania 20 match. Yeah, probably that. I like the Rock match from Backlash 03. I don't think there's any other Goldberg matches from the last 10 years in the time that he's been back that I would say are my favorite. Like the Roman match was way too short. The second match with Bobby was better than the first. It was good, but it's not my favorite. I haven't gone back and watched it. That would probably be it. I mean, the Taker match was terrible. The Ziggler match was a fun squash, but it's not my favorite Goldberg match. It was well done, though. The Fiend match sucked. We know that. Yeah. It would probably be that third Brock match at WrestleMania 33, to be honest. Let's see. Goldberg versus John Cena would have been cool. Yeah, in the right time period. I mean, even a few years ago, that match probably wouldn't have been great. But if both guys were like younger and when Cena was on the rise up in 04 and 03, that would have been interesting then. In 2016, 2017, I don't know if the match would have been all that great, to be honest. Probably would have been better than Cena or Taker and Goldberg, but probably not that much better. Richie said, WWE needs to bring back David Otunga for this John Cena retirement tour. They are former tag team champions together. They do have history. Grunt also said, so do you think Gunther versus Goldberg is a good choice to counter-program All In? I mean, no. I mean, so here's the thing. It is counter-programming All In, but it's not airing at the same time as All In. Saturday night's main event is later that night. All In is during the day. They're technically counter-programming All In with NXT Great American Bash. And honestly, regardless of what that show, there's no matches in NXT right now for as great as NXT has been at times. There's no matches in NXT that will measure up to what AEW already has lined up for All In. I'm not even saying All In will be the greatest show of all time, but like, you have Moxley and Hangman, which is high stakes, and there's a chance that Hangman could win. I don't think he is at this point. I hate to say that, but I don't think he's losing. Okada, are you going to watch Okada versus Omega or fucking Josh Briggs and Brooke Jensen? You know what I'm saying? Like, I like NXT, but what show are you going to watch? You could watch All In and Saturday Night's main event, but even if Saturday Night's main event was airing opposite of All In would still win. Maybe not viewership-wise, because WWE is a much bigger platform on NBC, obviously. But if you're going to watch Gunther and Goldberg over fucking Okada Omega, I mean, I'm not saying you're not a wrestling fan. I hate saying that sort of shit. But like, come on. I love both companies. I like a lot of stuff WWE does. I'll usually watch a WWE show over an AEW show, depending on what it is. But I mean, come on. Goldberg having his last ride is cool, but the guy's a 58-year-old man that's already injured coming into this match. So you're going to watch that over Omega Okada? If you could only watch one match, give me a break. But anyway, you can watch both, because I think All In airs earlier, and then Saturday night's main event is later on in the night. Johnny said, correction, FTR versus the Hardy Boys in AEW. Yeah, that match never happened. That would have been cool, though. Cena and Samoa Joe one-on-one. We did talk about that earlier, Grunt, but I'm very disappointed that match did not happen. Johnny said, casket match, Finn and Taker. Demon Finn and Taker? Well, that would have been interesting. Bullet Club versus NWO. I mean, that's just a dream match. That's not a match that could have happened. But, yeah, I mean that would have been interesting. Jushin Thunder Liger in a Royal Rumble. That would have been cool. I know, he had the one shot in NXT, which I was actually there for. Him and Tyler Breeze. I watched his one and only true WWE match. I think he had a WWE match decades earlier. I don't know if it was televised or was at MSG. I don't remember, but his first and only true WWE match on television was the one against Breeze, and I was there for it, which was cool. Liger and Great Muta. Did they have a match? Did they not have a match? Did Muta and Liger never have a match? That would be kind of crazy if not. I guess that would count. Muta and Taker. That would have been cool. Andre and Johnny Gonzalez, Fernando, get out of here. You've been banned. That match would have been terrible. Johnny said Taker and Rollins. Taker and Ambrose. Taker and Ambrose did have a match. Taker and Rollins did not. I'm not really complaining that they didn't. I thought we might get Taker and Rollins in 2015. We did not. And I'm not complaining that we didn't. Taker and Ambrose, believe it or not, did have a match on SmackDown in 2013. Taker had just beaten Punk at WrestleMania 29. And then he had a six-man on Raw with himself, Daniel Bryan, and Kane against the Shield that they lost. And then that week on SmackDown, he faced Dean Ambrose. And I think he won by DQ. And that was it. They never actually went back to it because I think the Shield put Taker through a table, and then Taker was off the show for almost a fucking year. Until early 2014 when he came back for the Brock match at Mania, that terrible Brock match at Mania 30. So, yeah, they actually did do Roman and Dean Ambrose. Seth Rollins is the only guy to have never faced Taker one-on-one. He has faced him in that six-man tag match before on Raw, but never one-on-one on TV. Scott Steiner and Brock Lesnar. Don't know how good that match would have been, but I'm not really all that surprised that match didn't happen. Bray versus Bo one-on-one or tagging together. Yeah, I guess not. I know they teased it in NXT many years ago, but I guess Bray and Bo never had a match or teamed up on television. Maybe in FCW, but never on TV. David the Goliath said, I'm honestly surprised Liger and Great Muta did not do anything within the main roster in WWE. I mean, they were always, what do you mean, it's one-offs? Because Vince wasn't really interested in that sort of shit, the same way Triple H has kind of done that in the past and done that recently. But going to WWE, they were way more comfortable and probably far better off in Japan, to be honest, than in WCW and companies like that. David also said the Fiend versus Uncle Howdy. I honestly think they were setting that match up during Bray's final run. I thought so, but then it looked like they were going to team instead. I don't know if they were ever going to have an actual match. I thought they would, but then it kind of looked like they were going to team instead, so probably not. Grunt said, still pissed Liger going into the Hall of Fame didn't lead to him being in a 2K game. That is surprising. Yeah, he was in the Hall of Fame. They inducted him during COVID. He couldn't even fucking be there. I think he was going to be a part of the class of 2020, and he still is technically. But when they inducted him the following year, COVID was still a thing, so he wasn't there in person in 2021. And those ceremonies didn't even happen in front of people anyway. They were just like a quick thing on the network or something, and that was it, or on Peacock or whatever. Anyway. Yeah, it's still a bummer that he's not in the game, though. He's a Hall of Famer, so hopefully at some point they put him in. Micah said, it's Tuesday, $5. How to Train Your Dragon today, ? Micah said, first of all, Micah, what's going on? He also said, I'm thinking about going. That would be a great idea. We're not going today to see the movie for $5. Maybe next Tuesday, because my plan is, what I would like to do, is see the original movie first. Believe it or not, I've never seen the original How to Train Your Dragon, the animated movie. So Alexis advised me to watch that movie first. We were going to watch it together. Haven't had a chance to do so yet. So we're going to do that before we see it in theaters, the new one, to compare the original to the live action and see how it measures up, blah, blah, blah. So probably next Tuesday. We might watch the original movie tonight And then we might see the animated movie before then, but I also want to see Elio too. So I don't know. Yeah, one of these Tuesdays we'll probably see How to Train Your Dragon. And you can ask me next week, and if by that point I probably will have seen it, so let me know. Although I might see it after we stream next week, so we'll see. CM Punk versus Stone Cold, David said. Not surprised we didn't get it, but that would have been an awesome match to get. I know someone mentioned that earlier. Fernando said Jeff Hardy and Sabu. That would have been cool. The Hardys versus Sabu and RVD. That would have been fun. Seth Rollins and Taker would have been fire, Micah said. Yeah, I mean, depending on the era, like 2015, I think still would have been good. 2012, definitely. I mean, like, the cool thing is, like I said, we did get Prime Rollins and not Prime Taker, but like in 2013, they did face off in that 6-man, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great fucking match, a very forgotten, great Raw match that a lot of people do not remember. So we got a nice taste of it in that match. It's not like they never interacted physically before, so at least they did in that match. Anarchy in the Arena, Dark Order versus Blackpool Combat Club. Absolutely fucking not. No thanks on that, Johnny. Grunt said, clarification, Bo and Bray did face off on pay-per-view for the Raw tag titles. Bray and Matt Hardy versus the B-Team, but no one-on-one or team together. Yeah, I forgot about that. You're right. The B-Team did beat Bray and Matt for the tag titles, but never one-on-one. David said, imagine American Nightmare Cody versus The Undertaker. I mainly want to see Cody's promos against Taker's. They would have been magnificent. Yeah, Taker, I never really took Taker's promos for being great, though. We talking Taker and, like, American Badass Taker, like, Dead Man Taker promos were never all that great. Some of them were good, like the ones with Shawn Michaels, but I can't think of too many awesome Undertaker promos when he was the Dead Man in the last 15 years. 20 years. But yeah, I think Cody and Taker would have been cool. I think they had I know you're saying American Nightmare Cody, but they definitely had a few tag team matches. One-on-one, I don't think they had a match. But they may have, I don't remember. Does Rollins and Ospreay count? Yeah, that match counts. I don't think that ever happened outside of WWE, did it? So, I mean, again, am I surprised it never happened? No, because they've always been in separate companies. But yeah, that would have been a great match. Eddie versus Taker one-on-one. Did that never happen? Did those two never have a one-on-one match? That is surprising to me because they were in the same company for so many fucking years and on the same show. Like I mentioned earlier, Eddie and Shawn, they were on separate shows, so that doesn't surprise me. Eddie and Taker were both on SmackDown from 02 through 05 before Eddie passed, so I am surprised that match never happened. I know Taker was a babyface, as was Eddie, but you could still do babyface versus babyface matches. Hideo Itami versus Daniel Bryan or Samoa Joe. Did those matches, I mean, in WWE, are you saying, or like outside of WWE? I mean, outside of WWE, I'm not sure they happened either. I feel like there's more of a chance that could have happened. In WWE, I'm not really surprised those matches didn't happen because Hideo Itami was always ever relegated to the Cruiserweight division on the main roster before he left in 2019. He was in the Cruiserweight division for like about a year and a half, actually, for all of 2018. He never really was on Raw. He made like 1 or 2 matches on Raw, 1 or 2 Raw appearances, but he was never on anything but the Cruiserweight division. And then in NXT, Daniel Bryan wasn't in NXT. Hideo Itami was there at the same time as Samoa Joe, but not really all that much because Hideo Itami's runs in NXT were kind of marred by injuries. He got hurt in 2015, right before Beast in the East. So when Samoa Joe debuted, Hideo Itami was injured. And then when he came back, Joe was there, but he was only around for like a month or 2 before he got hurt again, which sucked. David said I was mainly referring to Cody for the promo work. Yeah, I mean, Cody would have carried those promos, I feel like, but that would have been interesting. Maria said, I have heard the live action of How to Train Your Dragon is a carbon copy of the animated How to Train Your Dragon. Well, that's good. I've heard that too. So I don't know how great the movie is, but that's probably for the best. I don't know if you're saying that as a negative or not, but you know, I think a lot of animated movies, if you remake them in live action, it should be the exact same thing and not to change things unnecessarily. Parnell Lane, thank you for joining, said Shawn Michaels and The Rock one-on-one. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that before, but I am a little surprised that match did not happen. David said NWO versus DX. Talked about that before, not surprised it didn't happen, but, you know, at least we got a version of it at WrestleMania 31. Jacqueline versus Jazz, Maria said. I'm surprised that match never happened in WWE. Guess they never had a match. Grunt said, thoughts on having specific wrestlers on side plates, like the Briscoes being on the Ring of Honor tag titles or Omega and Okada on the unified title, kinda. I'm fine with it if it makes sense. The Briscoes being in the Ring of Honor tag titles makes sense because Mark Briscoe literally passed away as one half of the Ring of Honor tag team champions. And those belts will always be synonymous with the Briscoe brothers, Mark and Jay. So that makes perfect sense to honor them. The unified title with Omega and Okada, I'm fine with it because they're the two unifying their two respective titles, and they're two of the greatest in AEW. So, it wasn't necessary. I don't even really like the new unified design, to be honest with you. It's fine, but, it doesn't really bother me. Grunt said, in WWE, yeah. Danielson and Kenta had great matches in Ring of Honor. That's what I thought. Not sure if a one-on-one with Kenta and Joe ever happened, though. Probably not, but it's possible. Jay Briscoe. What did I say? Did I say Jay Lethal, Grunt? Yeah, Jay Briscoe's on the side with Mark. Mike has said Lilo and Stitch made $800 million. I think it's safe to say we are getting a part 2. I fucking hope so. So we could see Ruben in live action. I can't say that enough. Go pay your money to see live action Lilo and Stitch. So we can get part 2 made with the experiments. David said, I guess I should mention the dream matches to end all dream matches, Sting versus Taker. I don't know by the good grace of God that this match did not happen, especially since the pieces were right there. I agree. We talked about that before. Oh my God, I apologize. I said Mark passed away. Mark is alive and well. Thank you, Grunt, for correcting me. Mark is alive and well. I hate to say that he had passed. Jay was the one who passed away. I apologize. You're right. I did say that. Yes, Jay passed away. I am totally fine with putting them on the side plates for the belts because that was they're so synonymous with that championship. That makes a lot of sense. Fernando said, is Ron Killings losing to Cena again on SmackDown? I think he'll probably beat him, to be honest. Either whether it be with an assist from Punk or what. I feel like he's going to win, because why would you have him lose twice? Why even do the match if he's going to lose again? That would just be fucking stupid. He has all this momentum right now. Why waste it by having him lose to Cena, unless he's going to win? I feel like it could lead to another match between the two at the next Saturday Night's Main Event, at Saturday Night's Main Event in Atlanta next month, because they're not doing it Night of Champions. Cena's busy with Punk. Let's see. Cena versus Hollywood Hogan. Again, not surprised that didn't happen, but that would have been fun. Mike said, what are your thoughts on the Lizard Man from AAA, from AAA, Mr. Iguana? Also, Santino versus Lizard Man. Snake B Lizard. Pause, no Diddy. I have no idea what you're talking about. If you're talking about Mr. Iguana, I know you're talking about Mr. Iguana. The rest of it, I have no idea what you're saying. And I don't want to know what you're saying. If you're referencing Diddy, I probably don't want to know. My thoughts on him, listen, he's kind of it's a spectacle thing right now. People are fascinated by it. I wasn't sitting there like, oh God, this Mr. Iguana guy is hilarious. Like, I don't really care. I don't hate the guy. I don't love the guy. I don't really care either way. But if he's over, you should capitalize on that by using him on WWE TV. And maybe it catches on. WWE fans seem to be captivated by it, but that's cool. Hopefully they use more of him. David said, I remember there was a time Tiffy versus Charlotte was a match we all wanted to see. Now we wish we hadn't seen anything. Now, I'm glad we got the match. I liked the match at Mania. It wasn't amazing, but I thought it was a very good match. I liked it. I think this is a controversial one, but Tessa versus Charlotte. There's a chance we could still get that match. Tessa could still end up in WWE at some point. But yeah, that was a match, especially a few years ago, I feel like would have been great with the trajectory of Tessa's career before she kind of flushed it down the toilet. And Charlotte being a big star. Yeah, I know Santino as the Cobra versus the Lizard Man. I agree. I just, the Diddy thing kind of threw me for a loop there, Micah. But yes. That match would be, Jim Cornette would have a field day with that one. So honestly, I would like to see that match, if only so Jim Cornette could have not a heart attack, but I want to see him rant on that match. That would be fun. What is your favorite live-action remake of an animated classic? I don't know. Live action remake of an animated classic. I only think of the Disney ones. What other ones have there been? It might be Lilo and Stitch. That movie wasn't incredible, but I don't really know the other ones that I can think of. It wasn't Lion King. I liked the Beauty and the Beast one, but that's not my favorite. I haven't seen Aladdin. Heard Mulan wasn't good. Heard Snow White wasn't great. It's probably Lilo and Stitch. I can't think of another animated classic remade into live action. I can only think of the Disney ones. What other ones were there that I'm not thinking of? Vin Diesel versus Dwayne Johnson. Well, one of them would have the job. So, yeah, that's why that match never happened. Let's see. Rizbo said during Sting's time in WWE, they had a Survivor Series handicap match between Kane and Taker versus the Wyatt family. I always thought Sting should have been Kane and Taker's partner that night. There wasn't a handicap match. You're thinking of, it's Survivor Series. It was 2-on-2. I do agree. I do agree that would have been awesome. The issue is that night was all about Taker. And him and Kane obviously have a lot of history as partners. The Wyatt family were just in there to eat the loss. And it wasn't a handicap match. They took 2 members of the Wyatt family, which was a 4-man group, and put them up against the Wyatts, or put them up against Brothers of Destruction. Sting had gotten hurt right before that, so that match was not going to happen. What you're saying was never going to happen because Sting got hurt in Night of Champions 2 months before that. Now, if you're saying Sting with Roman and Dean against the Wyatt family, which they were setting up at that point, that would have been possible. That would have been cool. But at Survivor Series, that was never going to happen unless Sting didn't get hurt at Night of Champions. Flair versus Hogan mainly when they were at their prime. I agree with that. That should have happened in WWE. It did happen years later in WWE in like 02, yeah. It happened in WCW as well, I believe, but not in WWE when it would have mattered most. Kurt Angle, Will Ospreay would have been awesome. I agree. That would have it wasn't going to happen. There was no timeline where it would have made sense when Angle was in his prime, but that would have been cool. Grunt said, funny how people are saying the unified title looks like the old women's title when the international title is just the new women's title with a blue globe and some flags. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I just don't love the new unified title design. I don't hate it. I've seen far worse designs. I'm not a big fan, but I like the international title currently more. Because the old women's title was garbage. I think people, like you're saying the international title looks like the women's title, the newer one. Yeah, because the newer women's title is better. So you're right. They are very similar, but at least it's a better design. You don't want to copy something that's inferior. The old women's belt fucking sucked. The new one's a lot better. Dwayne Johnson versus DC Cinematic Universe. That one happened and DC won. Johnny said, Mercedes Moné versus Camille in AEW. I feel like that ship has sailed at this point. Do people even remember that Camille's on the roster? She still does work there, but they're not going to use her. Do you want to see Megan Bayne versus Camille? I would if Camille was on the show. I feel like that'd be a good match. I don't know if Camille's ever going to return. That's the problem. If you were a wrestler, what would be your name and finisher? I've answered this before. We'll just go with Graham GSM Matthews and my finisher, the Graham Slam. Or the writer's block. I've always liked that one. What the move would be, I have no idea. I've loved the RKO. Love that move. I love the sweet chin music. I don't know if either one of those moves would make sense for me or it would go well with the Graham Slam name. I feel like just a world's strongest slam or something like that. I don't know. Actually, you know what? You know what move I always loved, but it wouldn't work for me because I'm not him. But Matt Morgan's old finisher, the Elevator, I always thought that move was fucking cool. Where he'd grab someone up with a suplex, grab them up, and then slam them down into like a rock bottom. I always thought that was a great move. So let's say that one. If I was jacked like Matt Morgan, then I would use that and call it the Grand Slam. Meltzer and Cornette would be interesting, David. I agree. Micah said Pinocchio, Dumbo, Lady and the Tramp, all on Disney Plus. Mulan, they made a Mulan. I didn't see the Mulan when I heard that was garbage. RJ told me. He's a big Mulan fan, so I trust his opinion. Pinocchio, I didn't see. I saw the Pinocchio that Guillermo del Toro made a couple years ago. I don't think that was a live action, but that was a great movie. Dumbo did not see. Lady and the Tramp, that was a real thing. They made a live action Lady and the Tramp. I did not see that. Probably not that great. Ron Simmons and JBL, did they never have a match, Maria? That's surprising. I guess they just broke up in 03 and that was it. They never had a match. Not even before they started teaming. Miz and Grayson Waller, is that really a dream match? Come on. HBK and Jerry Lawler. I'm a little surprised that never happened. I'm not complaining. I don't really care. Grunt said Kurt Angle not having a run in Ring of Honor when they had an agreement with TNA is a criminal offense. No, yes and no. They did not have an agreement with Ring of Honor when Kurt was there. Kurt got there in 06. The Ring of Honor agreement with TNA ended in 05? I don't think they were working with TNA at that point. When the whole, Feinstein thing happened, I think Kurt was already in TNA when that whole thing ended. When the agreement ended, I don't think Kurt was working with TNA at that point. He got there after that. but that would have been cool. And also, were they really going to use top TNA talent in Ring of Honor? Like, when they actually were working with Ring of Honor, they had people go back and forth a little bit, but it wasn't like the Jeff Jarrett's or the Stings. Like, those, they were in TNA a little bit when they were working with ROH, but they weren't in Ring of Honor. I think it was mostly relegated to the lesser-known people, or the mid-card people at least, like AJ Styles, who was a mid-card guy at that point, people like that. But, again, I wasn't watching at that point, so I could be wrong. Mox and AW are getting sued. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I saw the thing. I think people should really check out the full article by John Alba, who's great over at Sports Illustrated. He had a news item on that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the big takeaway from the whole thing is, oh, the guy is like, why is he suing now? He barely got pushed. I completely agree. It's definitely ridiculous for this guy to say that he endured so many injuries from just being shoved by Moxley onto the ground. I doubt he got that hurt from a simple shove. The issue is that with Dean Ambrose, or with John Moxley, why did I say Dean Ambrose? With John Moxley, he shouldn't have touched the guy. If the guy was not clued in on being physically shoved, because that's why you don't do that sort of thing, because if he wasn't incorporated into the angle, if he wasn't scripted to be physically, hit that night or whatever, you are in fear of lawsuits. And that's what happened. So it was a dumb move on Moxley's part to do that. They really should just settle with the guy and move on from it, so it's not further bad publicity for the company. But that's really my thoughts. I mean, it's really about it. I mean, the guy, it sounds like he's trying to get every dime from these people for surgeries that he probably needed anyway before he even got shoved to the ground. It's very suspect, but he should not have gotten physical with the guy. That's kind of the bottom line. Moxley, that is. Tony Khan's bench has a lot of people on it, Johnny says. Indeed it does. Matt Morgan versus Taker. I don't know if that match would have been that great. What is your favorite RKO? Evan Bourne or Rollins? Rollins, easily. Easily at Mania 31. That's my favorite RKO of all time. Bullet Club versus Shield? Oh, that would have been cool. JBL versus Andrade? Why? I mean, JBL went to the Mexican border. I mean, I'm not saying that's the same thing at all, but they had JBL feuding with Mexican talent, with the country of Mexico by going to the border, which is just a fucking wild angle to do, even then. So, yeah, I mean, they had JBL feuding with Eddie Guerrero, which was fun. They had some great matches. But yeah, that did not age well, especially in light of what's going on right now. So, yeah, JBL and Andrade, in all honesty, has no appeal to me at all. I would actually like to see a Punk and Waller feud. Yeah, but Waller's got to be built back up. He's a fucking loser right now. He's done nothing of note. I like Grayson Waller, but he's been a tag team undercard guy for years. That match would be a quick GTS and have that be it. That's not appealing at all. I would not waste Punk's final years in a Grayson Waller feud unless Grayson Waller was built back up. David said, Rock and Roman, how have we not got this match? How? I mean, you can ask The Rock. It's probably his fault. Am I surprised Victor never got a bigger push? No. If you're talking about the Ascension Victor, no, he was never that good anyway. Mike has said, WWE doesn't have many dream matches left, honestly. When you think about it, Rock versus Roman is the final match. I'm predicting it to happen next year in Vegas in Mania 42. Well, keep predicting, Mike, because we've been predicting it for a decade, and it has yet to happen yet. If it hasn't happened yet, I'm kind of skeptical it will ever happen. I know the only time it was going to happen was when it should not have happened, because Rock's ego couldn't have dealt with that for whatever reason. I know this match would have probably sucked, but it's such a vibe for me. Goldberg versus The Warrior. I talked about it earlier. That match would have been terrible. Who takes 2 years to sue for injuries, Maria said. I mean, he probably was consulting with his lawyer as to how they can maximize this thing, drawing up the lawsuit. You're right. It is ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous, but he shouldn't have touched the guy. So that's why we're in the situation that we're in. Pay the man $25,000 and hopefully he'll let it go. I agree. Just pay him, settle, and move on. Grunt said, nah, Styles and Joe were stalling matches in Ring of Honor in 07 and 08. Interesting. Same with Motor City Machine Guns. I mean, Kurt Angle probably didn't fucking want to. I mean, again, did you see Jeff Jarrett and Sting working in TNA? I mean, the difference with Styles and Joe was already in Ring of Honor prior to going there, as was AJ Styles. I mean, those were Ring of Honor originals. Those guys were there in the early years of Ring of Honor. Kurt Angle wasn't working fucking Ring of Honor. I mean, Kurt Angle was working a lesser schedule. He wasn't doing great health-wise at certain points anyway. It would have been great to get certain matches from him at that point, but that was never going to happen. He would have just been like, absolutely not. Like, was Booker T working Ring of Honor? Was Scott Steiner and Kevin Nash working Ring of Honor? Obviously not. Cena and Ricky, I don't know what you're talking about. Cena and Ricky Starks? At this point, I don't really care about that. Cena's washed at this point. Is that really much of a match to give a shit about? Orton versus DDP, RKO versus Diamond Cutter. That would have been cool in the 2000s. I mean, obviously not now, but once upon a time, that would have been fun. David said, I remember one match that was circulating around. There's no chance it could happen, but I think it's kind of cool. Dean Ambrose versus Jake the Snake Roberts. I mean, yeah, that was never going to happen, but they did interact in that old school Raw show in 2014, which was cool. Roxanne and Raquel versus the Bellas at Evolution, Micah asked. Probably. With Liv Morgan probably being out, that sucks. It's a big blow to the division. But yeah, they might just replace Liv with Raquel, or with Roxanne rather, and still do the match. Honestly, wouldn't be shocked. It's the easiest solution to make. Johnny said, Mick Foley versus AJ Styles in a ladder match in TNA. That is so fucking random. Did they have a match? Is that a match that happened? I don't remember. Because Mick was there for a little while. Orton versus Rock, that would have been cool. I agree. Micah said, maybe we should adopt the interim tag team champion stipulation AEW does when the wrestlers get hurt. Roxanne and Raquel can build chemistry while Liv is out injured, and upon return, you have a feud. No, the interim stuff is just fucking stupid. I never really was a fan when AEW did it. It's just lazy. I would not do that because WWE's never done that before, so why start now? Just give Roxanne the title. They already did that with Raquel, with Bianca and Jade last year. When Jade got hurt in storyline, real life, whatever, they gave the belt to Naomi for no real rhyme or reason. I mean, she just stepped in as half of the champions. So you don't even have to give her the interim title. Just give her the title. Just give Roxanne the tag team titles. Is it like fair? Who gives a shit? The belts mean nothing anyway, so it hardly matters. But yeah, I mean, they'll probably lose the belts to the Bellas if I had to take a guess. Maybe the Bellas, retire with them. I don't know. But the belts don't mean anything. They'll pick up where they left off when Liv's ready to return and feud with Roxanne. Am I surprised that we never got the match? I don't know what match you're talking about. Because Raquel can turn on Liv and make her go babyface. Yeah, I could see that. Yes, Liv Morgan is out. She got hurt on Raw. She got hurt on Raw last night, separated shoulder or something like that. So hopefully she's back at some point soon. Hell in a Cell TLC match. Cactus Jack versus Jeff Hardy 2000. I mean, that's a fucking wild match. That would have been fun, though. LA Knight versus Ricky Starks. Yeah, that'd be a fun match. More so for the promos, but the match would be good, too. Shawn Michaels and The Rock, we mentioned earlier. Angle and Danielson, Angle and McGuinness, Angle and Kenta, Angle and Davey Richards, Angle and Steen, Angle and Generico. All the possibilities. I agree, those matches would have been awesome, but Kurt Angle was not lifting a fucking finger if it wasn't for a massive paycheck for TNA. Love Kurt, but he was not working Ring of Honor. Those matches would have been cool, though. At least we got Angle and McGuinness in TNA years later, to be fair. We did get that match, at least. When he was, was his name? Oh, no, Desmond Wolfe. That was his name in TNA. Booker T versus Bobby Lashley. Yeah, I guess we never got that match. True GSM, I forgot about the Naomi Bianca thing. Yeah, they just did that recently, so I mean, it's not unheard of to have someone just fill in for half of the tag champs. Do I want to see Bianca versus Charlotte at Evolution? I would be down for that, but what would be the story? I mean, Bianca's been out. Charlotte's not doing anything right now. She's kind of doing a story with Alexa Bliss, so what's the story there? Bloodline versus Elite? Yeah, peak Elite, then sure. Current Elite, no, but peak Elite versus peak Bloodline, yes. Final Boss Rock versus 2011 Punk. That would have been awesome. I agree. Knight and Ethan Page. Yeah, that'd be good. Bloodline and Hurt Business. I wish we got that in WWE. Didn't get it, though. We got a version of it a little bit. I think they did Bloodline and New Day, but they never did Bloodline and Hurt Business, unfortunately. Booker T would have done well in Ring of Honor. I think the whole reputation of Booker T, though, right, in TNA was that he just didn't give a shit. So, he really phoned a lot of stuff in. Was that not his reputation there? And then Michaels versus Booker T when he got kicked out of the NWO. Yeah, they never did that match. Michaels returned to the ring soon after, but they abandoned the whole NWO thing. I guess they didn't have a match. I guess we never got Booker T and Michaels out of that soon later. Oh, Grunt said he met Kurt Angle a couple of weeks ago. That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I've met Kurt a whole bunch of times. I interviewed him a few years ago. Really nice guy. He actually follows me on Twitter, funnily enough. Someone asked him many, 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 many years ago. A friend of mine at the time said, hey, it's this kid's birthday today. Can you follow him on Twitter? And he actually did follow me. Very random, but he did. And he still follows me, I believe, to this day. How about BCC versus Original Bloodline? Yeah, that would be better than the BCC Dark Order match. This is my most wanted dream match. LA Knight versus MJF. I mean, as a match, I don't know if it'd be amazing, but yeah, the feud itself would be fun. That would be cool. Peak New Day versus Peak Elite. I agree, Noob. That'd be cool. Wyatt family versus Bloodline. Yeah, that would have been fine. Not great, but that would have been fine. All right, let's do some more scheduled questions here before we move on with the chat. A lot of great activity in the chat. All right, so getting back to these scheduled questions here, Emmanuel A. sent in a couple of questions from YouTube. He said, do you remember SummerSlam 03? And have you ever heard about the backstory for the World Heavyweight Championship Elimination Chamber match? Supposedly, the original main event was just Goldberg versus Triple H, but it switched to the Chamber match to cover for Triple H suffering a groin injury. It's why Triple H wore biker shorts at the time. But also, Triple H retained the title because WWE asked Goldberg to fill in for him at a European tour, and Goldberg declined. I did not know that. I think the groin injury I may have known, but I forgot. I just thought Triple H wanted to hold on to the belt longer. I mean, honestly, I feel like that's what it was. I feel like they just didn't really want to capitalize on Goldberg when it really mattered. I mean, they gave him the belt the following month, so it's not like he had all this heat to where he never won the World Championship. They wanted to give Triple H something, and then to have Goldberg win, or have Goldberg win the championship. But by that point, it didn't really mean as much. It still meant something, but it did not mean as much as it would have at SummerSlam 03. So the whole European tour thing, I did not know. That is interesting, though. He said, do you think Judgment Day benefited from Carlito's involvement? Carlito recently said on a podcast, Busted Open Radio, that him joining the group and being comic relief was his own idea since Triple H wasn't interested in pushing him. He also said his return run still went better than expected, and that his only complaint is that he didn't get a send-off for the sake of the story. I agree with every single thing that Carlito said in regards to all of that. Judgment Day did benefit from having that comedic element, which they did not have before. I thought Carlito was a nice addition to the group. People are like, oh, he's got the easiest job of all time. He just goes out there and jobs for 2 minutes. What the fuck do you want, a 20-minute Carlito classic? I mean, it would have been nice to see Carlito get a real run on his own as a serious competitor, but they have so many people that are better than him, younger than him, higher ceilings than him in 2023, 24, 25. That was never going to happen, probably. For the run that he had, he was always on television. He was always involved in something, whether it was the LWO or the Judgment Day. He was always on television for the 2 years he was in the company. And then they let him go. He was 46 years old. They didn't have a long future in mind for him. I do wish they had written him off the show. They write very few people off the show. I said this on Twitter yesterday, and I said this earlier here on the stream. Wrestling is television. I mean, would you really watch General Hospital or any television show and see a character disappear and then wonder what happened to him and they never acknowledge it again? That does happen from time to time, but very rarely. In WWE and AEW and companies like that, it happens constantly. They never write people off. Very rare. I mean, for injuries, they will. But when people get fired, they never write them off. Or they won't even acknowledge it. Even when Carlito disappeared, they weren't like, oh yeah, Carlito's on vacation for good or whatever. They just fucking ignored that he was ever there, which is kind of shitty. But yeah, Triple H not pushing him on his own, not being interested in pushing him, doesn't surprise me because, again, he was in his mid-40s when they brought him back a few years ago. I like Carlito. I enjoyed his return run for what it was. It was entertaining. It didn't really need to be much more than what it was. It's not like he wasn't on the show. He was on the show almost every fucking week. So I agree with everything that he said on Busted Open Radio. I think it's a great way to look at things, too. It's a great perspective as opposed to like, oh, they buried me. They didn't push me. Like, the fuck did you expect? I'm glad he has some great awareness on the situation. Anyway, Emmanuel also said, do you watch old wrestling content on YouTube often? I recently learned that TNA has most, if not all, of their classic pay-per-views fully uploaded on their YouTube channel. WWE has some of their old documentaries uploaded on their channels, and even AEW's channel has taken to uploading full-length matches and compilations. Yeah, I'm aware of all of that. I see them, I recommend it all the time. The WWE Vault channel has a ton of shows and old pay-per-views and documentaries and never-before-seen stuff. They have a NXT YouTube channel now where they have all the old takeovers, which I think all the old takeovers are on Peacock, but the old NXT shows are not, and most of them, 2015 or 2012 through 2015 of NXT is all up on YouTube now, and they're approaching 2016. They upload like a new episode a day, so that's pretty cool. TNA does have all their old pay-per-views, which is awesome, up on their YouTube channel. It does make me honestly want to go back and watch them and review them, because I didn't really want to sign up for the TNA app, and I hate the fucking ads on Peacock and shit, so it's just way easier for me to watch shit on YouTube. So on a side note, if you guys wanted me to go back and watch some old TNA pay-per-views or NXT shows or whatever and review them here on the channel, let me know, and that's something I might be interested in doing at some point. Now that they're all accessible on their respective channels. Christopher L. from Facebook said, "Hello, Graham. Hope you're doing well and had a great Father's Day." I was just checking the time here, approaching the 2-hour mark, which is a lot. That's crazy. We've already been here for 2 hours. Anyway, he said, always a happy day to spend with our dads. My first question is, after 2 months of segments, after that, well done turn at WrestleMania, this is what he said. Is it safe to say this new Seth Rollins group isn't working out so far? The turn was great, even though we could have probably seen it coming for miles. And adding Braun Breaker to the group is both long-term storytelling and a great way to get him over as a monster future main event prospect. Bronson Reed was a surprising return in addition to the group, even though we didn't get a believable reason to why he and Rollins are now comrades, and when Reed nearly exploded Rollins' ribs once. I agree with that. At first, I liked the idea of these two with Rollins, but as the weeks have gone by, I can honestly say I haven't particularly loved how this group has been booked. Yes, there's been some storyline progression with Rollins in the briefcase, but for the most part, it's been the same thing every week. Seth and gang either attack the group of babyfaces and always stand tall, rinse, and repeat. On top of that, Braun and Bronson just wear the same black suit and sunglasses every week, while Seth wears his usual ridiculous outfit. Thereby, they're just background players to Seth. It was the same with Seth and the Authority, same with Seth during COVID, and the same with Seth now. Seth just seems to be the common denominator to all of these. I know it's too soon to judge, but do you feel this group hasn't caught on fire like it should have? How would you book this group better than the usual beatdown and stand tall? And do you think this is just more proof that WWE has a Seth Rollins dilemma than it never seems to end? Some of which I agree with, some of which I don't. I have liked the group so far. I think it has potential. I think it's a great use of both Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. I agree that they should have explained better as to why Bronson Reed is in the group, because they were rivals late last year, and then they forgave each other for the greater good, I guess. I don't know. They never really explained that, especially from Bronson's end. He hasn't really spoke much at all since being back. But I like the idea of the stable. I like the idea of Heyman being with them. It's like a new dangerous alliance. They are kind of, lackeys for Seth, but it's not like they're out there losing matches. Braun and Reed aren't really being pinned. I know Reed, I think, was pinned last night in the 4-way, but they win a lot of their matches. They've beaten down the baby faces a lot. They've beaten the baby faces a lot. Seth is Mr. Money in the Bank, which I would not have done, but he's won most of his matches. I mean, he's been booked well. So I've enjoyed the group so far. My biggest complaint with the group is not really the booking. It's more so I want them to feel like a group. So you have Bronson and Braun matching, which is cool with the suits and whatnot. I want a new group name, and I want a group theme song, or at least a new theme song for Seth, period. Coming out to the same old song has not really done much for me personally. It's time to move on from the song, and which I know is the rumor right now. And I would like to see them get an actual name for the group. Whether it be The Vision, I mean, I don't really love that, but it's better than nothing. Or just call them Dangerous Alliance. I don't know if they own the rights to that name or if they want to reuse it. I don't know. But I would like that idea. So, I don't know. I've liked the group. Ask me again in a couple of months. It is definitely too soon to say. They only debuted less than 2 months ago, so you're kind of... I mean, you even said yourself it's too soon to judge. It is too soon to judge because they've been booked well. A lot of the attack angles, I agree. They've done quite a bit of that, but that's up to Triple H to get creative with it. And, they have rivals in Sami Zayn and Jey Uso and CM Punk. Hopefully Roman Reigns at some point. Hopefully it'll heat up the more that we get further into those feuds. They need some more direction, but Rollins being Mr. Money in the Bank gives him certainly something to do, I'll tell you that much. Their next question, Jey Uso lost his title last Monday in a strong match against Gunther, ending it just 51 days. I personally thought that the reign was pretty much proof that just because you're mega over means you're automatically qualified to be world champion. It wasn't a bad run. I mean, I wouldn't agree with that because LA Knight hasn't been champion by yet. LA Knight hasn't been champion yet. So just because you're mega over doesn't mean you're champion, first of all. But anyway, he said it wasn't a bad run, but it's not one that will be remembered as a memorable one. That being said, who do you see Gunther losing the belt to? And what are your thoughts on Rikishi's comments about what he said about Jey Uso losing the belt? I didn't see his comments, but Rikishi's always going to defend his son. He's going to, criticize the booking and how he was booked as champion. No, it was too short, blah, blah, blah. Listen, you're lucky Rikishi, he even won the belt. He is super over. I'm glad he won the belt. I have no issues with Jey Uso's run. He had a few title defenses. He's mega over. Some decent promos, some not so decent promos. He was on the show consistently, a focal point of Raw, and that was it. And then we moved on. Gunther is the superior superstar, as he should be. Rikishi's comments, I don't really know what he expected. He can get the fuck over it. As far as who I see Gunther losing the belt to, I don't know. I'm not really sure. People have said Sami Zayn, maybe it's SummerSlam if he wins King of the Ring. I don't see that. I think Cody wins King of the Ring. I know that's a lame choice, but that's just how I see it going. Yeah, I don't really know who else it would be. Who else would he face at SummerSlam? Maybe Rollins? I mean, Rollins, I guess the safe answer is Rollins. Like, he'll cash in during a match that makes it a triple threat, and Rollins becomes champion that way. I do not see Rollins cashing in and losing, and if he does, that's fucking stupid. It's a waste. I think Rollins, he'll lose the belt to Rollins. I mean, I'm not really confident in that because Gunther's a heel, so I'm not really sure how that would make sense. But, that's just how I see it going down. Their next question, thoughts on the new AEW lawsuit? Do you think it's blown out of proportion, especially since I saw the video and he just shoved them? Maybe a little aggressively, but nothing that would warrant any of the injuries he's listed. Yeah, I talked about that before when Micah asked about it. It's lame. I mean, the guy's just looking for a quick buck. The bottom line is, if someone's not involved in an angle, do not touch them. Do not push them, because it could lead to shit like this. That's just a headache. So, I mean, yeah, it really wasn't anything super serious, but he could have a case, even though he waited 2 years to file it. Maybe it took him that long to consult with his lawyer about it. I have no idea. We have no idea what AEW even knew about this either, as far as whether they were aware of it, whether he filed a claim at the time internally when he worked there. I have no idea. I don't think he still works there, right? I have no idea. But anyway, it's stupid, but AEW could have avoided this if Jon Moxley didn't shove this guy down to the ground. So just don't do that sort of thing, and we can avoid this sort of shit. But at the very least, you could just have him pay the guy the money, be done with it, and then move on. Do you think CM Punk is a hypocrite and a major league sellout, he asked, for going to Saudi Arabia for the title match against Cena? I mean, people calling Punk a sellout or a corporate shill now or a hypocrite now. I mean, he's been a hypocrite, so to speak, since he came back to WWE. I mean, he said in AEW the whole, buy one, get one free night of WrestleMania, and then he doesn't really care about headlining Mania, but then he's headlining a 2-night WrestleMania, and night one no less, which he never really considered the true main event anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't give a fuck. I'm still a Punk fan. I mean, he really should not have made that Saudi comment a few years ago. Or, I mean, a few people, Sammy and Owens and people like that were kind of against the idea of going there, but then they've since changed their minds for other reasons. Punk should be more vocal about, why he's going to Saudi Arabia. I doubt he will put the spotlight on himself, but if he is going to make dumb comments like what he said to Miz a couple years ago on Twitter, he really should publicly explain, yeah, I've changed. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't know. I have changed my mind, or I want to make the money in Saudi Arabia, which is could be part of it, because you make a lot of money by wrestling over there, especially in big matches like Punk and Cena is going to be. He really should be more open and honest about that. He's open and honest about a lot of shit, but he really hasn't talked about the Saudi stuff. Because he said a couple of months ago, I never really was against going to Saudi Arabia. It's like, okay. If that's the case, then why did you say what you did to the Miz? Like the Saudi, the dick comment or whatever the fuck. Like, did you really need to say that? Probably not. So, yeah, Punk's it's not a great look. Let's put it that way. It's not a great look for Punk to be going to Saudi Arabia after some of the shit he has said about WWE, the Saudi stuff, and the WrestleMania shit and everything else when he was over in AEW. He probably would have been better off saying nothing at all, even if he felt that way at the time. Let's look back at the chat real quick before we finish out with the last few questions. Let's see. What are you guys saying in the chat? Raquel chooses Alexa Bliss to replace Liv would be cool. Why would Alexa Bliss want to team with Raquel, though? She's, doing her own thing. Raquel teaming with Roxanne would make way more sense. I like the Firefly Funhouse match, David. You mentioned that one randomly, but I like the Firefly Funhouse match. Oh, a Fiend versus Tribal Chief Roman Reigns in a Firefly Funhouse match? I don't know how great that would have been. Wyatt family and Bloodline we mentioned. Ladder match, Shawn and Rob Van Dam versus Jeff Hardy 03. That would have been fun. I know Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy had a few ladder matches, but with Shawn, that would have been cool. Grunt said that he told Kurt Angle, he told him that he was the first heel that I hated as a kid because I had an anti-American phase, and he laughed and said, I don't blame you. That's funny. You said, GSM, do you think the Judgment Day storyline has gotten too, I don't know what that word is, to be perfectly honest with you, but if you mean like stale or something, yes. I mean, the Judgment Day is not what it is, not what it was a few years ago. And they've been dragging out the tension with Finn and Dom and Liv for so long now. I am still somewhat invested, but it's been going on for way too long. They got to speed it up. And now they might not be able to because Liv got hurt. Johnny said, good thing we don't have Triple H or Jeff Jarrett reign of terror. Yeah, that's true. We should have seen a Carlito and John Cena rematch. That would have been a waste of a John Cena match. In 2025, that would have been a waste of a John Cena rematch. Or a John Cena match. They wrote off Ricochet well in WWE. They did. That's the only one that I agree that comes to mind as far as them writing someone off, because that was under the idea that Ricochet might resign. So his contract was expiring and he was already on TV. So they had an opportunity to use him to get someone else over on the way out, which I'm glad they did. And I thought they did a really nice job of that. So yeah, they did write off Ricochet really, really well, and I'm glad they did. But you can't say the same for so many others. You asked, do you think MVP is right about Triple H? I mean, he said it wasn't a race thing, but he's also made comments of being a race thing. Like, what is he talking about? You know what I mean? Do I think he's right about Triple H in his booking of Bobby? Yes, because I think he did definitely underutilize Bobby Lashley when Bobby was there. If Bobby was happy with his booking, he would have stayed, I'm sure. He should have used MVP more when Triple H was in charge. I mean, the personal stuff, I've never worked with Triple H, so I can't say if Triple H is an asshole or a prick and he has a bad feeling about Triple H. I don't know Triple H personally, so I don't know. But as far as the booking of Bobby, that I agree with. I also don't know what else he has said. I saw some of his comments where he said, oh yeah, it's not a race thing, it's something else. I'll get into it another time. He still hasn't yet, so I don't know when he will. Maria said, I agree. Triple H just wanted to keep the title longer and purposely delay his match with Goldberg. I mean, that's what I always thought. Richie said, 24-hour stream. One of these days, but not today. I'm actually getting hungry, so I got to get going here soon. Johnny said, yes, review TNA pay-per-views and NXT takeovers. All right. If you guys want to see that, I could, I could do more of those here on the channel. I've reviewed a whole bunch of takeovers before. Not all of them. I stopped after a certain point, but TNA pay-per-views, they did a few. I'd be down to watch old TNA pay-per-views and review those. I feel like that'd be fun. Grunt said, honestly, these Vault channels are one of the best things WWE's done in the last few years. I totally agree. It's a great idea. Grunt said, also glad that Ospreay and Omega 2 is on YouTube now, though I'm disappointed they cut out the entrances. Yeah, we talked about that last week. That is annoying, but that might be, the more I thought about it after you said it, it might be to avoid paying copyright purposes. Like they might have to pay the bands. I mean, Ospreay song, for example, that's not an AEW theme song. That's a It Lives, It Breathes song, for example. Kenny Omega, same thing. I think he owns the rights to his song. So whoever made those songs, they might have to pay those people if they put them on YouTube to profit off of, as opposed to just putting them on streaming or whatever and paying like a one-time fee. Maria said, I think the Seth faction is already better than the Death Riders. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. Stone Cold versus Cena, David said. Yeah, we talked about that one before. Richie said, I need them to not be cowards and upload Tustin versus Cody in full. I agree. That match was awesome. I was there for that one. Would love if they uploaded that in full. I mean, yeah, I mean, they should. I mean, AEW is like, it's not like, oh, Cody's in WWE, we can't acknowledge him. Like, they're better at that than WWE is. And WWE is fucking uploading full matches with people from AEW, so who gives a shit? You asked, what did you think about Roman's Cena comments? What Cena comments? Were they recent comments? Were they comments from a while ago? What did he say? The New Shield can be a great name. No, do not call it the New Shield. That would be lazy. Heat versus, Jey Uso and LA Knight. Yeah, maybe at some point. Grunt said, hot take, I haven't minded anything the Death Riders have done on TV. It's the quality of Moxley's pay-per-view title defenses that has been the major issue. That's been the bigger issue for me, but even the shit they do on TV is not interesting. I mean, recently it's been slightly better, but like before April, it was fucking putrid. Anything with Wheeler Yuta was also god-awful. But the quality of Moxley's pay-per-view matches and the constant interference has also been a big problem for me. I mean, you could say the same thing with Roman's run, but that was just more interesting storyline-wise as well. The matches were better. A lot of Moxley's pay-per-view matches have just been boring as fuck. Kaiser versus Vinci. Yeah, they should have done that. The Ministry of Darkness versus NWO. I guess. Back to the lawsuit. The fact that the guy apparently continued to work with them and then try to get full-time work makes it even more bullshitty in my opinion. Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of lawsuits are bullshit, so it's not really surprising. But you know what? You shouldn't have touched the guy. Punk said, or Mikey said, Punk is doing what he's told. He has to do a job. If your boss tells you to put the fries in the fryer at McDonald's, are you going to tell him no and go back to the unemployed line? I don't understand these people saying these things about Punk. The thing is, Micah, I agree with you. Yes, he has a job to do. He's going to do what his employer has told him to do. The Saudi shows were always inevitable. It's not what he's doing now. And I love Punk, and I will be the first one to be honest about Punk as well. People's problem with Punk is that he says the shit that he has in the past, then it comes back to haunt him. People change. People wise up. People regret saying stupid shit. But they also should be held accountable for stupid shit and at least apologize or address it, being like, yeah, my thoughts on that have changed, or, that was a dumb thing to say, or I still stand by that and whatever. He has not even addressed it. He's just kind of danced around it because he probably knew it was a dumb thing to say, and it's coming back to bite him because he probably never expected to work a Saudi show because he never expected to be back in WWE. So it's not that he's going to Saudi, it's the fact of what he said in the first place a few years ago. Maybe don't say that, and then people wouldn't be calling you a hypocrite. Maria said, even if Hangman was going to get booked to lose, should he lose the title for sure because of the lawsuit? Oh, no. The lawsuit, I mean, the Death Rider shit is garbage, but that should be the reason why Moxley loses the championship, not the lawsuit. The lawsuit should have nothing to do with the television stuff. Grunt said, what? You want me to quit my job? Punk, known job quitter. He's quit quite a few times. Do intergender matches count? Rhea versus Dom is one I was surprised didn't happen. Yeah, I was a little surprised we never got Rhea versus Dom. That would have been fun. Richie said, just reading this now, but thoughts on Big E saying that he wanted to be Goldberg's retirement match. Are we past the point of seeing E back in a WWE ring at this point? Yeah, E being Goldberg's retirement match would have been cool. Again, in 2025, it probably wouldn't have been great. Anything with Goldberg in 2025 is not going to be great. But Big E being the one to retire Goldberg would have been cool because he always wanted to face Goldberg. He's talked about him being a dream opponent before for him. He may have benefited from beating Goldberg, and it just never happened. Are we past the point of seeing Big E back in a WWE ring? No, I don't think he'll ever be back on a full-time basis, but I do think down the road at some point, Big E will wrestle again. Whether it be for a one-off singles match or for a New Day six-man tag, even with the neck issues. I know his neck issues were worse than Edge's, but everyone has come back at some point. If you're a big enough star, like Tyson Kidd never wrestled again, he never wrestled again, Jason Jordan never wrestled again, but they're not big enough stars to warrant WWE like taking a risk on them being back. Edge was a big enough star. Paige is a big enough star. Daniel Bryan's a big enough star. Big E isn't an Edge or a Daniel Bryan, but he is important enough to WWE's history, or if he really wanted to get cleared, and it was safe enough, I could see it happening. Maybe not soon, but down the road, I could totally see it happening. Rhea versus Solo, if the promos would be hilarious, I don't know. Yeah, Solo is funny, but no thanks on Rhea and Solo. Is the LA Knight issue Triple H's fault? Yes. Unless LA Knight's doing shit that we're not aware of, like he's peed in someone's coffee, the fact he's not being pushed more is totally Triple H's fault. Who else's fault would it be? Just LA Knight's? I mean, if he's late to work, then sure, but I mean, there's no known issues that we know about. Magic Plumaye, no idea what you're talking about. You're probably just trying to troll me with some, I have no idea what you're fucking talking about. Anything with Vince is garbage, so I think you're just trying to troll me with some stupid shit. Guess what? It ain't gonna work. Because you try to throw that shit out there on the stream a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Speak English. Like, is that a word? Is that a real word? What are you talking about? I mean, I'm not saying you're speaking a different language, but whatever word you're using makes no sense. So, no idea. If it's something dumb, just as a rule of thumb here, I mean, some comments I miss in the chat. But if it's stupid or I don't know what you're talking about, then I'm not going to read it. Just a heads up. But thanks for joining, Magic Plumaye. David said Judgment Day and Bloodline. Yeah, that would have been nice, I guess. Mike said currently eating some spaghetti GSM. You got to head over to Olive Garden and get you some boss. Oh, get you some boss. Okay. Yeah. Olive Garden is great. Olive Garden is awesome. I've said that before. They don't sponsor me. Why the fuck would they? But Olive Garden is ridiculous, or ridiculously great. I misspoke there. I'm sorry. Olive Garden is awesome. Big Olive Garden fan here. We were there just a couple weeks ago with Nick and company. Alexis, Nick, his wife Lindsay. When you're there, you're family, so you can't complain about that. And yes, I am referring to Wheeler Useless, Micah. Grunt said Cody's comments in the Bullet Club were silly, but at least he admitted that they became less cool when he joined. Yeah, what he said about the Bullet Club, I didn't agree with. Did he say they became less cool? I mean, yeah, I guess. I liked the Bullet Club when Cody was in it. Were they less cool? I mean, I suppose. It wasn't drastically less cool when he joined, because the Bullet Club was fucking killing it with Cody involved. So, I mean, let's not go anti-Cody here, Grunt. Richie said, Newsweek is reporting Liv Morgan could be out upwards to 16 weeks. Oh, my God, that sucks. Such a shame as she's been one of WWE's workhorses this year. I wonder how that affects the Nikki and alleged Brie returns. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like we said before, it could be Roxanne and Raquel at Evolution versus the Bella Twins. I could totally see that. Richie said PW Insider reported it. He just read it on Newsweek right now. I should rephrase. That sucks, because Liv has been such a big part of that division and the show itself. She was like simultaneously working with Roxanne, Io, and Nikki Bella, and teaming with Raquel. Like, she was the focal point of that division, and she's gone for months. That sucks. On a simple thing, too. Grunt said, okay, I'm going to be a real downer on the stream with my number one answer to matches that should have been Punk and Benoit. You're not a downer. I mean, listen, Benoit, he can burn in hell, terrible person, but he was a great wrestler, and Punk and Benoit would have been a great match. I don't know if you're allowed to say that, but that would have been a great match, to be fair. And that would have been cool, Night of Champions in 2007, when it was supposed to happen before what happened. Let's see. That's an actual question, Magic Plumaire. Are they going forward with Dom and Roxanne? I guess we'll find out, right? I don't know. I would think so. I would find it very hard to believe that they would just stop it cold turkey. They will totally continue it in some form or fashion. Bad Bunny and Logan Paul. I guess. David, you're just going off with all these dream matches you want to see. It would be a good match, I guess. I don't know how many people would want to see that, but it could be a fun match. Richie said, if Orton can poop in someone's bag, then LA Knight can do whatever he wants to whoever's coffee. That's a great it's a great point. If Orton can poop in someone's bag and not be fired from it, then LA Knight can do whatever he wants in anyone's coffee. It's a great point. Paul Bearer versus Paul Heyman in 2004. Absolutely fucking not. Grunt said, thoughts on Red Lobster? I think I've been maybe once. I'm not a Red Lobster guy. I don't want to say it's too fancy for me. I mean, I'm sure it's great. Olive Garden is, obviously just fake Italian food. No shit, but I like that shit, so. Nothing against Red Lobster. I'm not saying it's garbage. I'm not a Red Lobster guy. I'm almost positive I've been there at least once or twice, though. I think with family back in the day, but not recently, and I probably wouldn't go again. I'd rather go elsewhere. If you have any thoughts on any fast food chains or food restaurants or whatever the fuck, you have any thoughts when you want me to give my thoughts on, let me know and I'll give them. Johnny said CM Punk versus the Bucks in a handicap match inside a Target. Okay, that's a good one. AJ Watson said, not a match, but I'm surprised Heyman did not manage Ronda. She should have been the female Brock. That also surprised me, because when I read Ronda's book, her most recent book last year, I listened to it on Audible, she mentioned, Heyman was writing a lot of her shit for promos and stuff. So Heyman was working with her extensively behind the scenes during both of her runs, and neither time did he ever manage her, let alone even interact with her. That is very surprising to me. Abu Sika, what's going on, brother? Abu Sika is here. Abu Sika, the Bukaki Ghost, as Solomon Monster would say. Thanks for joining, Abu Sika. Hope you're doing well. Yes, Chris Jericho did piss in William Regal's stay. I remember that. That was the catalyst for their Mania match, was it not, many years ago? Teddy Long, one-on-one with The Undertaker. That would have been a great way for Teddy Long to get his comeuppance for all the times that he put Taker in matches. Taker, I mean, to be fair, they didn't have a match, but I think Taker, didn't he, drive a limo into a, didn't he kidnap Teddy Long one time back in 2009? Grunt said, Graham, the biscuits, you need to dig into some Cheddar Bay. They offer that at Lobster? Maybe it's because it's been so long since I've been there. I'm not going to shit on Red Lobster because again, I haven't been. Maybe I would like it if I went now. I think the last time I went would have been in high school, which was a while ago. Wasn't recently. At least over 10 years ago. So I might have to go again and give my thoughts on that. Yes, Daniel, Bukkake Ghost is indeed legendary. Abu Sika is a legend as well. Yeah, Bukkake Ghost is fucking funny. Johnny said, thoughts on Five Guys and Shake Shack. Love them both. Love them both. I have not been to Five Guys in about a year and a half. First of all, it's just way too expensive. Second of all, they give you so much fucking food. Third of all, it is great. I mean, it's obviously not great for you, but to have once in a while, it's great. It's just not convenient. Where it is, the nearest Five Guys to me is not that close. Yeah, so I haven't been in a while. I mean, now that you mention it, I might want to go soon. I like Five Guys. Shake Shack, if I had to pick, I like Five Guys more. Shake Shack is just way more reasonable. It's a known thing in New York. I've gotten it in New York a time or two, but I also got it when I was in Vegas the second time I went. I didn't get it this most recent time when I was there, but they do have a Shake Shack there. I feel like I've gotten it in the last couple of year or two. Maybe not. I thought I did. They have it at airports and stuff like that too. But yeah, if I'm next to either a Five Guys or a Shake Shack, I'd probably go to Five Guys. But Shake Shack is awesome. I like Shake Shack a lot. Grunt said, yeah, that happened at the SmackDown taping I was at in Hamilton. Spooked me out, not going to lie. Yeah, okay, so you were at that show. That would have been back in 2009. That's crazy. When they were, that was right after Teddy Long screwed Taker, right? At the, because they were in Montreal for Breaking Point. And then they went to, I guess they stayed in Canada for that SmackDown the following week when Teddy Long screwed Taker out of the world title against Punk. That makes sense. AJ said, Hurt Business Lashley versus Tribal Chief Roman. That would have been awesome. I agree. I'm fucking pissed we never got that. Grunt asked, ever been to a Timmy's, Tim Hortons, when you were here in Canada? If not, I know what we're doing when we eventually meet up. Yes, I actually have been to Tim Hortons. I've been to Tim Hortons, I don't know how many times, but I've been to Canada a few times, and I've definitely been to Tim Hortons. I mean, it was so long ago. I can't say, I loved it. It was good, and it was definitely good. I didn't hate it, I'll tell you that much. The last I was in Canada was Montreal a few years ago for Elimination Chamber. I don't think I got Tim Hortons then. I got a few different things. I tried, what's it called? There's a certain dish, the poutine, whatever the fuck, I don't know, gravy poutine, I don't know, whatever the fuck it is. I tried that. It was okay. I wouldn't get it again. I also got it from McDonald's. That was my first misstep, obviously. But anyway, yeah, no, I haven't had Tim Hortons in a while, but it was good. From what I can recall, the last time I had it a long time ago. It's basically, it's probably better than Dunkin'. I like Dunkin'. Dunkin's a Northeast thing here, obviously. Northeast coffee. It's the equivalent, but Tim Hortons is probably better. Because I think they have better donuts and shit, too, do they not? Obviously, guys, does Triple H hate Theory? I mean, I don't know if he hates Theory, but he certainly doesn't give a fuck about him. I mean, based on how he's been booked for the last 2 years, he was pushing him pretty aggressively. I think he gave up on Theory when that Cena promo happened, and I'm not even kidding. As soon as Cena verbally buried Theory, back on the road to WrestleMania in 2023, he never pushed Theory again. Now, I know him and Waller are good as a team. They've been teasing tension for almost a year and a half, which is ridiculous. And they were tag team champions for a little bit. I get that. But he has not pushed him at all since he lost. Since he beat Cena even. He beat Cena at Mania and he has not pushed him since. And I think that speaks volumes. I don't think Theory will ever get beyond a certain level in this company unless he leaves, proves himself elsewhere, whether that be AEW, whether that be TNA, somewhere else. And, I think he would have to take that route in order to be seen as a real star in Triple H's eyes. So, yeah, it honestly feels like he does hate Theory. Because, I mean, even the weeks where people will get behind Theory and cheer for him when he's teasing tension with Waller, Triple H doesn't care. I think he hates him more than Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross he also doesn't give a fuck about. Otherwise, he would have been in the ring by now. Karrion Kross has organically gotten himself over to a certain extent, and he's barely even on Raw. He's only relegated to backstage segments. He's not even out of the fucking ring. It's ridiculous. I think he's just given up. I think maybe hate is too strong of a word, but he has certainly given up on Austin Theory. I will tell you that much. Grunt said, yes, I was in Quebec, and I got poutine from McDonald's. The only reason why I did that, Grunt, I know, it was ridiculous. I fully acknowledge that. And you said, I'm a regular Michael Scott here. It was because it was like I was there anyway, and I saw it was on their menu, which was interesting because obviously they don't sell that here in the States. I'm like, well, I'm not going to go out of my way to get the poutine or whatever the fuck it is elsewhere because we just didn't have enough time. We drove in Friday, were there all day Saturday, left first thing Sunday morning. So we didn't really have enough time to get poutine from somewhere else, and I wouldn't have paid top dollar for it anyway, especially if I wasn't going to like it. It wasn't awful, I just didn't love it. It was definitely, I'm sure, garbage compared to poutine elsewhere, I'm sure. But it's not really it's not really my thing. Let's put it that way. You're lucky I even tried it anywhere. But Grunt, listen, when I do meet up with you in Canada, we can go to Tim Hortons. I won't get poutine, but we can get Tim Hortons for sure. Yoey Spingucci said, is Logan Paul's act wearing thin? It is not wearing thin. It has been worn thin for quite some time. I think Logan Paul, I'll give him more credit than most people do. I think he's a lot of fun to watch in the ring. He's had some great matches, and his promos can also be quite good. He's a great heat magnet, but his act is very repetitive. He's been doing the same shit for a while now. The Jey Uso match was fine. The Styles match was the disappointment to me. He's been kind of just going through the motions, and when he's given everything away in his arsenal, I wrote all about this in an article about a month ago, if you want to check it out. But he's done all that he can do, really. Like, he should not win a world championship. He's been the mid-card champion. That was kind of a bust. He held the championship for 8 months, and it was a lot of nothing for the most part. There were months where he wouldn't even appear. And, the matches, he can only do so much. He's kind of limited. If he's not really, dedicating himself to the craft, like if he has to practice his matches at this point, he's been here for years, he's never going to get beyond a certain level. So, yes, his act is indeed wearing thin. So we will close out the final stretch of the video here, or the last couple of questions. These last two are also from Christopher L. from Facebook. He sent in a bunch of them. I'll save these last two for here. The other ones I already answered. But he said, would you consider the main roster run of Carmelo Hayes as one of the biggest botches of Triple H's run as head of creative? This is a kid who has a boatload of charisma, is as athletic as hell, and can deliver a quality match with anyone, can talk, and can play a good face and a great heel. He was one of the top stars in NXT, and I truly believed he could translate that stardom onto the main roster, but so far Triple H and Creative have dropped the ball on him endlessly, with him being sided with The Miz being the final straw for me. Do you feel they haven't booked Melo to his full potential, and how would you book Melo going forward? Yes, the main roster run of Melo has been disappointing. For a guy that was drafted, I almost said booked, drafted first by SmackDown in the 2024 draft on night one last year, he has done, I don't want to say a whole lot of nothing, because his series of matches with Andrade were excellent. The first month or so, he was booked fine. He, advanced in the King of the Ring tournament. Okay, cool. Didn't win that, obviously, but he was in that. He was kept busy with that. He was in the Money in the Bank ladder match, had a great showing there. Feuded with Andrade for a few months, had an awesome series of matches with him. I think the biggest botch with Hayes was not giving him the United States Championship. He should have been the one to take the title from Knight, not Shinsuke Nakamura. Even Andrade would have been better. But Hayes really should have won the championship during that series, not Nakamura, which was a complete fucking waste of time. As soon as that happened, they lost their way with Hayes, because the feud with Andrade ended, and he had nothing. Like, he went on a losing streak for weeks. He'd have great matches with Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn and all these other people, but he would lose every fucking time. He lost for months, and then he finally started winning, and then he sided with Miz, which was just absolutely terrible. He won the Andre Battle Royal, which means nothing anyway. And then it's really been nothing. Like, he's been feuding on and off, kind of, I guess, with Aleister Black. He teased tension with Miz a little bit a week or two ago. They got to break him away from Miz. That was a mistake. Miz ain't benefiting anyone in 2025, and I love The Miz. But move on from The Miz, please. Do not let him go or anything, but, like, Hayes should not be associated with The Miz. Have him turn on Miz, beat Miz, move on. I would say keep him, or turn him babyface, try that, but I feel like they have enough baby faces right now on SmackDown. Yes, they have definitely dropped the ball with Melo currently on SmackDown. Just book him better in the mid-card. Put him with someone that he can beat. Continue to rack up wins. The Andrade stuff was great. Honestly, have him beat Jacob Fatu for the United States Championship. I wouldn't give the belt to Solo. I don't give a fuck about Solo as the U.S. champion. Give the belt to have Jacob Fatu move up the ladder. But he can ultimately lose that championship to Carmelo Hayes. I just feel like he's the perfect fit for that title. And if you're not going to do that, he might have better luck on Raw. You might as well just move Hayes to Raw at that point, because if they have no plans for him on SmackDown, he's going to continue to spin his wheels, get him the fuck away from the Miz, and try him out on Raw. Just to see him spinning his wheels really bothers me. Eating pinfall after pinfall, it's infuriating. So he hasn't had a terrible run, but it has been disappointing, and it should be better. For a guy that is as good as he is, for as good as you say that he is, which he is, he really should be higher up the ladder than he currently is right now, or at least have more going on. Your last question there, Christopher, was, last week really opened my eyes to how unbelievably bad this company has treated Io as champion. She has not defended the belt since WrestleMania, and every week on Raw, she's either relegated to backstage segments that are either stupid or weird. Last week, the women's champion, Io Sky, who was known as the genius of the Sky, basically acted like a fangirl to Nikki Bella, a woman who had led the worst era of women's wrestling, and even said that she paved the way for her, which made me want to throw up. This is a woman who has been doing this for 18 years, and the best that they have her do is lower herself by thanking Nikki Bella of all people. I was embarrassed for her. Why have they made her feel less special as the champion, yet continue to push others like Liv Morgan and Jade Cargill, women beneath her in terms of in-ring ability, harder? You said a lot there. Io should be defending the championship more. You're right. She hasn't defended it in 2 months. I agree with that. But she is on the show every single week, whether it be in a backstage segment. She had matches with Roxanne. She was on NXT at one point. She was feuding with Roxanne and Julia for a few weeks. They teased a rematch with her and Rhea, which she probably also would have complained about had we gotten that. She doesn't have a whole lot of direction right now. That's the issue with Io. But, I mean, I wouldn't call her reign terrible. Like, she retained at Mania, which was an amazing match. And I'm glad Io even has something going on. Io is over, but Liv Morgan is just more over than she is. Liv Morgan's a bigger star than Io Sky. So you can talk about how much better Liv is, or Io is, than Liv, which is true. But Liv Morgan just had more storyline support over the last year. Io should also have that, I agree. But Liv is just more of a well-rounded character. Not nearly as good in the ring as Io, but Liv's better on the mic, and she's a better character and someone they can build the division around, which is why it's such a big blow to that division to not have Liv Morgan there right now. But with Io Sky, the whole Nikki Bella thing, listen, to say that Nikki Bella paved the way for Io is kind of silly, but it bothered people way more than it should have. And I'm not even the biggest Bella Twins fan, all right? But the Bella Twins have paved the way for certain people in ushering in a new audience through Total Divas and Total Bellas and shit like that. They are two of the biggest female stars the WWE's had in the last 15 years. That's a fact. A lot more people know the Bella Twins than even fucking Charlotte, honestly. Like, there's way more people know them than Io Sky. Yes, was it odd for Io, who is much better than Nikki, to say that she paved the way for her? Yes. But I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I mean, for her to say that to Kelly Kelly would be disingenuous. Kelly Kelly improved and she had success, but Kelly Kelly is, I mean, come on. She was a footnote in the history of that company compared to a lot of other women like the Bellas, AJ Lee, Trish Lita, women like that. The Bella Twins were there for a very, very long time. They had a lot of success, outside of WWE success. They built their brand. Again, I'm not even the biggest Bella Twins fan, but for people to freak out over the fact, they're booking Io terribly, they're having her glaze Nikki Bella, who gives a shit? It wasn't that big of a deal. It was one line. You don't have to believe it, but I could see what they meant by that, because without the bad times that the Bella Twins were either responsible for or involved in, we wouldn't get what we'd be getting right now. So they are responsible for it one way or another, to be honest with you. But either way, the booking of Io has been, questionable. She should be wrestling or at least defending the title more. I want her to have direction, but it's not like she's having a terrible run and they're dropping the ball on her. Let's not exaggerate there. I think you made a better case for Carmelo than you did with Io, which really isn't that big of a deal. At least she's on the show every week and she's still getting good reactions. And when she is out there, you can expect a great match. And that match in Mania was fucking awesome and probably the best women's match in WWE history, or at least in WrestleMania history. Anyway, at Uwagu91 from Twitter, last couple of questions here from him and Noob. At Ewagu91 said, your thoughts on A double Austin Aries? I enjoyed Austin Aries in TNA. I was a big Austin Aries fan. I had one of his shirts when he went to WWE. It seemed like he was always his own worst enemy. Because at a time when WWE did not release talent ever, they let go of Austin Aries. Isn't that weird? I mean, it didn't even sound like he wanted it either. They just outright released them. So I don't know if it was an attitude thing or what, but he was not in WWE for very long before they fired him in 2017. He was only in the company for about a year. And I enjoyed his run in WWE and NXT, but he was getting fired at a time when no one got fired. So there's more of a story there. He went to Ring of Honor for a couple of shots, didn't stay there. He went to TNA for a return run in 2018, didn't end on the best of terms there. He's never really had the best relationship with any of these companies. So that's why I feel like I don't know how he is as a person. I don't know him personally. I think he's a great talent, but it sounds like behind the scenes attitude issues have always been his biggest problem. Like he was in MLW for a little while, then disappeared from there. He was in NWA in the last year or two and then disappeared from there. He's not in any one place for the longest period of time. Maybe he doesn't want to wrestle full-time. I don't know. I'm not really sure what his status or situation is. But for a guy that was as good as he was, he never went to AEW either. Like, they never touched him. He was a free agent. When AEW became a thing, Austin Aries could have gone there. They could have hired him. They did not want to. So that alone should tell you a lot. Unless he just turned down their contract. I'm not sure. Anyway, at Uagu91 said, who do you see winning King and Queen of the Ring tournaments this year? I'm going Cody, which I don't love that idea. Cody should get the shot with Cena without having to win King of the Ring, but that's how I see it going down. And for the women, who's there? Who advanced? We're getting Roxanne and Jade, Asuka and Alexa Bliss. Winner gets a shot at SummerSlam against their women's champion. Asuka would be cool. Asuka and Io would be awesome. I get the sense Jade's going to win, though. Because Cody, you know what? Cody's on SmackDown, so maybe they won't have two SmackDown people win it. I don't think Roxanne wins, and I don't think Alexa Bliss wins. I might change my pick actually. I said earlier I could see Jade taking the title from Tiffany, and then Naomi cashes in on Jade. I just think Naomi should cash in on Tiffany, period, to be honest. So I'll say Io, or I'll say Asuka and Io at SummerSlam, and Asuka wins King of the Ring. Asuka's done everything else. I mean, she's won Money in the Bank, Royal Rumble, but she's never won Queen of the Ring, so I'd give it to Asuka, honestly. Do I see Leon Slater beating Moose to become the youngest X Division champion in history? At Slammiversary next month. Excuse me, yes I do. They've been talking about this all year with Slater being the youngest X Division champion if he were to win. I do think that's going to happen. I think it should happen. I feel like that'll be a great moment, and Leon Slater is very good. So, yes, I do think that'll happen at Slammiversary next month. And last question before we get back to the chat and wind this thing down. At Millennial_new, who was here in the chat earlier, he said, what are your thoughts on WWE quietly writing off Damage Control? The writing was pretty much on the wall. We all knew because fans aren't happy that Asuka was booked poorly, and Dakota Kai and Kairi had on and off appearances. Yeah, Damage Control, considering it was a big faction in the women's division, I really wish they had properly written it off as opposed to just quietly disbanding it. Because, I mean, it wasn't a great faction overall. The talent in the faction was great, but the booking was awful. I mean, they were constantly stepping stones. And I liked when they turned them babyface last year, but yeah, Asuka got hurt. Kairi got hurt there for a while. Dakota Kai was hurt on and off. So the booking was all over the place, largely because of the injuries. And, they never really were able to get beyond a certain point because of that. But it would have been nice if they just Dakota Kai got fired, but the rest of them, it would have been nice if they were like, all right, let's all go our separate ways. Like Asuka, Kairi, and, Io had a segment backstage and said, all right, this was a great time. Let's all go our separate ways. Or it would have been cool if Bayley tried to get involved with them again. Because obviously she left or they kicked her out or whatever, and then she would have to redeem herself by trying to be friends with Io again, this time as a babyface. I feel like that would be a good story to tell too. But they didn't really go in that direction. They just quietly killed the whole thing. Which the writing was on the wall, like you said, but I feel like that group deserved a better ending at the very least. Anyway, last couple of comments here before we wind down. Let's see. I'm looking forward to the watch-alongs if you do them. Thank you, Maria, for saying that. I appreciate that. Maybe at some point, what watch-alongs, I'm not sure. It could be an old pay-per-view. I don't know. We did a WrestleMania one a couple months ago. I don't love doing like pay-per-view ones because that kind of restricts me to watching a show and then sitting here for 3-4 hours or whatever. It's a long time. Maybe watch-alongs for like a live pay-per-view one of these days we could do. That's, we've batted around that idea before. Old matches, I've said that before, doing a watch-along for an old match. It's more so like, the right time and the right content of what to stream. And if you guys had other ideas of what you want me to watch or do or on the watch-alongs, then we could totally do it. So just let me know. Yoey Spingucci said, is he getting paid a lot? Who are you talking about, Logan Paul? If you're talking about Logan Paul, then absolutely, he's getting paid a shit ton. Has Triple H lost the plot? Some would say that he has. Completely no. He's not Vince McMahon batshit crazy, but he has lost more of the plot than he once had. Let's put it that way. Richie said, Mello and Theory are two guys that could easily be top guys in WWE. I agree. There's no excuse why they're not more established right now. Also agree. If it wasn't for Nikki Bella, Joshi Wrestling would cease to exist. That I don't agree with, but, there might be something to that. Maybe Nikki Bella inspired a whole generation of women's wrestling in Japan that we just secretly don't know about. Stephanie Vacquet was way worse than that EO backstage segment. Yeah, that's what I thought. Nikki saying Stephanie Vacquet, which I think, to Nikki's defense, I think she said after the fact that she tried to get it from Stephanie. Like, she tried to get her for the proper pronunciation before she went out there, and that's what she thought Stephanie said. And Stephanie said, okay, perfect. So that may have been just a lack of communication, like literally lost in translation. But yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Maria said, as a woman, I have a huge problem with Liv. Oh, interesting. She said, I have a huge problem with Liv Morgan's promo on Nikki about her not having a man in her life, knowing as she's going through a divorce. The same thing happened with Charlotte's divorce. Honestly, the thing with the Liv and Nikki divorce line, I have no issue with it. For the sole reason that the Charlotte and Tiffany one was not scripted. And it came up pretty quickly that wasn't scripted. If this wasn't scripted, we would have found out pretty quickly. I have a very big hunch. I think it's safe to assume that Liv, who was also, she seems to be a company player. She doesn't go off script or anything like that. I assume that she only said that because Nikki would have okayed her to say that or gave her the idea to say it, knowing it would get heat. I would find it very hard to believe, especially with how messy that divorce was, seemingly, with her and Artem, that she would bring that up out of the blue. So I don't have an issue with it because I assume Nikki okayed it. If we find out that Nikki did not okay that, then that's kind of fucked up. But I assume that she was okay with it because she probably was the one who told her to say it. Grunt said, hell yeah, I'll treat you and Alexis if she joins us to some drinks and a box of Timbits. Well, I look forward to a Grunt. Long time coming. That would be awesome. So, yeah, I look forward to that. That would be fantastic. Last couple of comments here before we wind down. Yeah, I mean, Richie said the same thing. I wouldn't look too much into it. Liv wouldn't say that if she wasn't cleared to say it with the talent beforehand. I agree. I agree with that as well. Grunt versus Austin Aries versus so many people in WWE. Yeah, I mean, it would have been awesome to see him against so many people in WWE, but, I think for whatever reason that run ended and that was it. Richie said Austin Aries versus You Must Be This Tall signs. Yeah, he was really sensitive about the height thing, which is, I mean, he wasn't sensitive about it, but people would really fucking bully him about it, which is kind of shitty. And that became his bit after a while. Fernando said, I thought Damage Control was long gone. I'm surprised people noticed. I mean, people pay attention to that stuff. Damage Control's been dead for months now. It's been dead since, before WrestleMania. I know Kyrie and EO teamed up when they were still Damage Control at that point. But Asuka wasn't back yet. Dakota wasn't really involved with them. But, people want a proper ending to stuff as opposed to just quietly forgetting about it. And I feel like that's the biggest issue people had with it, which is totally understandable. But that's going to do it, guys, for today's near 3-hour stream. 2 hours and 46 minutes. That's crazy. Don't typically go this long, but today's been a fun one with a lot of activity in the chat. You guys have been fantastic. And I look forward to doing this again next Tuesday for another all-new episode of #GSM. That's going to be coming up on Tuesday. But before then, new episode of WrestleRant Radio this Thursday. That's the next time we're live here on the channel for WrestleRant Radio with myself and Mr. Marceau, breaking down the week in wrestling, talking anything that happens on AEW this coming week. Raw coming up. It happened last night. Anything that happened on Raw and some other topics coming up on the show this Thursday. Grunt, if you're still here, as a channel member, I know you want us to discuss certain topics or me or whatever. So let me know. If you have anything you want me to discuss at the beginning of Thursday's WrestleRant Radio, let me know. Please, tweet me or whatever. Send me a chat, and I will discuss whatever topic you want me to discuss on the show to start this coming Thursday. Fernando said, I speak Spanish, and I have trouble with Stephanie V's last name. Yeah, I've heard it pronounced like 5 different ways, so it really doesn't matter. I call her Stephanie Vaquer, but people say Stephanie Vaquer, Stephanie Vaque. I've heard it pronounced several different ways. She's still great regardless, okay? That does not change. But anyway, shout out again to our channel members that I shouted out at the beginning of the stream. Alexis, Miss Mod Matthews, Dillon, DiGiacomo, Mrs. Renee, DJ Swerve 1, Daniel Malcolm, at I'm Quarter on X, RJ Marceau, at RJ_Marceau on X, John Ritland, Real Honesty with John Ritland here on YouTube, Richie, Red Planet Wrestling, he's been here in the chat. Check him out on YouTube, here on YouTube at Red Planet Wrestling, and Average Grunt, who I also mentioned a moment ago, at The Average Grunt on X. If you want to consider signing up for a WrestleRant All Access Pass channel membership, $5 a month will get you top billing on shows like this and WrestleRant Radio. For any questions or comments you have, any topics you want me to discuss, I will discuss them first before anyone else's. By becoming a channel member, you unlock that perk, in addition to badges and emojis, access to that sort of stuff in the live chats, early and ad-free access to certain videos when they go up before anyone else here on the channel, and a whole lot more, including the shout-outs I just mentioned. You get channel shout-outs at the beginning and end of every live stream that we do here on the channel. At the very least, though, if you don't want to sign up for a WrestleRant All Access Pass channel membership, you can simply sign up, or not sign up, you can simply just like the video and subscribe. That alone supports the channel, means a lot. So like this video on the way out, it would be greatly appreciated. Hit the bell button to be notified every single time we go live here on the channel and every single time we upload new content. Richie's got the right idea. He's got the Love Ziggler emojis, badges, what have you, in the chat. All hail Love Ziggler. And don't forget, all hail Ralph Ziggler as well. Don't think I forgot about that one. Chris Fatplander popping in with that fucking Ralph Ziggler mention, then just disappearing into thin air like their name is Tyreek. If you know, you know. But at any rate, folks, have an awesome one. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.